Okay, guys, it's been a while since we've got some good old-fashioned YouTube drama. That's not like the predictable, row of stuff. It's something a little different. It's Noah Samsen, and Think Before You Sleep. Really quick before we get into it, Noah Samsen, interesting guy. Sometimes maybe he misses the mark, for me at least. Think Before You Sleep. I've watched some of his content before. Not impressed. That's all I'm gonna say. Not impressed. Not impressed. But let's just start. Let's see what we got here. Let's see what we got here.
Hello, everyone. It's
Hi.
me, Curtis Connor 14 Pro Max.
I don't know how I feel about the new haircut. I think it's supposed to be cool and masculine. You know, like Burt Reynolds, if that's the person I'm thinking of. But okay.
For another video on YouTube.com. Today, we're going to be looking at a video from the Anti-Woke YouTube channel, Think Before You Sleep. I use anti-woke in a general sense. It's kind of anti-feminist, anti-SJW sort of stuff. This video is called How Woke
super
Propaganda.
chatted $1.99. I love your bald head.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate that you like my bald head. Thank you.
Works is a reaction video to a video from Novara Media, and it's hosted by Ash Sarkar. I'm just going to play his video, which plays her video and his reaction. And then I'm going to talk about what we're seeing. It's going to be slow, it's going to be clunky and chunky, but we're going to have fun with it, and we love it. Thank you. Let's go.
There's something about like those awkward, like we're gonna watch the video right now, like that kind of. It's so weird to me. Who started that? Who started the, okay, let's get the, and like with a little bit of awkward pauses and, who started that? Who started that? Why would you do that? Don't do that anymore, because it's everybody's doing it now. Like the silly little, you guys know what I'm talking about, right? I don't have to spell it out for you, right?
I've been seeing this thing pop up on social media.
What's
We're going to
this
talk
thing?
about how you can become a traditional wife. Some young
Traditional wife! To be honest with you, what kind of a man wants a traditional wife? I think that men should strive for what I call younger mommies. Sorry. A younger mommy is somebody who goes to work, of course, makes money, and then comes home and cooks for you and cleans for you and does your dishes and the laundry and does everything else. I don't know why you'd want a trad wife that stays home to do those things when you could have a younger mommy. Call me Yums, YMs. We're going to put the U in there. Who will also work on top of that. You guys are striving for the wrong things. This is the age of feminism. It's time to make women do a little bit more. Without you doing anything more. Okay? Because society's already manipulated them into thinking they have to do the dishes and everything. Now they're getting manipulated into thinking they have to also work. So just make them do everything. Make them do it all. You know what I mean? No, don't make them. They make sure that they think that they want to do it. That's the real thought you need to have before you go to sleep. Okay.
younger millennials and Zoomers have decided to embrace living La Vida casserole, dedicating themselves to cooking, cleaning, and child rearing while their husbands or boyfriends, chuck firewood or go to their job in human resources. This isn't just about personal choice or individual preferences. It's advancing a right-wing political ideology and dressing it up as a lifestyle.
Maybe. That might be a little disproportionate. If you're like, listen, here's my biggest issue, is when you try to force lifestyles onto people, right? Like, I would advocate to you that it's a good idea to get married when you find love. Don't go looking for it too hard or you're going to find it in all the wrong places, right? But I like that idea. And if I made a video about, like, hey, here's how to have a successful marriage or something, I think that that's okay. And just fundamentally making a video that's like, hey, it's okay if you want to be a trad wife, here's how. Okay. But just on its face value, maybe there's more, maybe I'm sure there's more into that video that's revealing, I suppose. But that's okay if you want to stay home and you want to cook and clean and do all that, whatever.
Oh no, women doing housework, child rearing,
Oh, no.
right wing, traditional.
Oh,
What
no.
does this world come to? This is terrible.
Oh, no.
Somebody please save us from this deeply misogynistic movement where women are choosing to stay home instead of working a job.
Ow.
Even though I don't like his voice, he does make a good point on the surface of it so far.
So that's what this video is like.
Sorry.
Random stock image, smug, whiny commentary that takes the first 20 seconds of the introduction to a video and does a little bit of a straw man, summarizing the trad wife social media phenomenon as women choosing to stay home and work.
Deeply misogynistic movement where women are choosing to stay home instead of working a job.
It's a classic
I mean, who wouldn't? Let's be honest with you. Staying home is better. than working a real job.
Example of a straw man. However, I think we can grant some leniency because
Straw man.
it's a sarcastic kind of like preaching to the choir that already gets what I'm saying sort of thing. So let's just keep watching and check it out.
Why is this important? 3 things. These women are often really young, in their 20s, and they're preaching the values of submitting to a husband to an audience of other young women.
Gee, as opposed to what the mainstream left is promoting to young children during family-friendly events? Also, why...
Where the fuck are you going with that? I was going to say, like, who cares if they're young? You know, being young and making mistakes is part of life. If it was a mistake for you to stay home and not do anything, like, maybe you're right. But, like, you're young, make mistakes. That's what life is about. And I mean, that's literally what life is about, being young and making mistakes and then learning through those mistakes and not listening to your elders sometimes, because sometimes they don't know and sometimes they do know. And that's why life is so fun and complicated, right?
Why is submitting to a partner bad?
Just like the left does, but why bring it there? Where are you going with that? I'm taking it to the moon. You guys are like just going between the moon and the fucking core of the earth here.
If it's done so by choice?
Oh, that's the what do I do?
To an audience of other young women.
Gee, as opposed to what the mainstream left is promoting to young children during family-friendly events?
Yeah, like, what do you mean? Like, I'm assuming you want to bring it to another trans conversation, because that's the only thing that conservatives have right now. But yeah, like they're promoting Powerpuff Girls. I don't know.
So, why is
Steven
submitting to a partner bad if
Universe?
it's done so by choice?
This video has 300,000 views, and the channel has 700,000 subscribers. And
God
this is a
bless
level
him.
of commentary. Pure, raw, unfiltered whataboutism, straight from the
what
source.
about
He is here referencing the right-wing
ism.
propaganda movement to frame things like Drag Queen Story Hour as being inherently predatory towards children and turning them trans,
Maybe.
hitting them with the trans ray. Part of the problem here is that the audience for this kind of video is so fully bought into right-wing propaganda that an assertion like that can just go fully unchallenged. They listen to Ben Shapiro, they follow libs of TikTok, they see the constant misrepresentation of drag queens and trans people, grouping those together because they like to just sort of group.
That's true. But hey, here's what I will say. Sometimes it is a little inappropriate. You know what I mean? Some of the events seem inappropriate, not because there's anything predatory going on. But like, for instance, they had that one drag queen story hour that was like, bring your kids. And it was so that moms could leave the house without having to get a babysitter. Makes perfect practical sense. And women love drag. My wife loves it. My mom likes it. I won't say that she's married to it because it left her when she was 5 months pregnant. But, you know, that's a little inappropriate, some of the stuff, so I get some of it, but a lot of it is overblown. You know, you got to, generally a gay guy in a dress reading to kids, like whatever, you know what I mean? Like just a typical day at my house, am I right? But yeah, I think a lot of it's overblown. Nobody's like, hey, this is a little inappropriate. Most of the time it's just like there's some kind of a massive conspiracy to fucking feminize children or something. I don't know. That's the conspiracy theory from the conservatives sometimes.
Group them together. And how RuPaul is coming to your house to break through your window to hit your child.
Sorry, I didn't mean to burp. I gotta work on not burping as much. I'm sorry. Hey, wife. My wife is still hiccuping. I've called her on the phone for the stream and she's still hiccuping.
Over the head with a hardcover copy of The Giving Tree. It's very scary and very real stuff that's going on.
Also, why is submitting to a partner bad if it's done so by choice? You just said a thing with a negative tone without explaining why it's wrong. Particularly when one of the most common things women ask for in a relationship is leadership from men.
So here's my issue with submission, and I think that I think that I got the right conversation about why submission is wrong. Because I think it is. And here, listen here. There's a difference between submitting to somebody and allowing somebody to like lead. Right? I would say that for the most part, like my wife likes it when I make decisions. I like it when she makes it too. But like that's kind of our dynamic. You know, I'm the man. And part of that is because my wife knows I like to feel like a man. Right? Sometimes it's just about them stroking the male ego. That's what a real wife does. But submission to me implies, well, you'll listen to the person regardless of whether you think it's in your best interest or not. It's like looking at a relationship as if like you're like a little baby that can't make your own decisions. And that could potentially be harmful, you know, where you don't have a comfortable space to advocate for yourself. Right? That's why I think, because that's what submitting is. It's just like rolling over, letting somebody do whatever, rather than like, hey, yeah, I want a guy that takes charge in the decisions, but you also want to be able to have some input, right? That's what I look at it. So I don't like the submission. I don't think that that's a good dynamic to just submit to your husband. You should always be giving pushback when you feel like it's necessary. Doesn't mean you have to push back just from the grounds of just pushing back. But that's my issue with just submission. So
Source? Can we get a source? Me, when I pull an idea out of thin air, the most commonly cited thing that women want is for me to go to bed at my bedtime. The woman is my mom, and she represents the thoughts and feelings of women across the globe. Also, he's like, you're using this negative tone without explaining why it's wrong. You're 40 seconds into the video. The video hasn't started. This is the introduction. The points are being listed out, and then they're going to go in detail if you watch the video. All you got to do is watch the video. But this person is allergic to pre-watching, which we love on this channel. We love it.
Hey, I never pre-watch anything. I watch it live, baby. I ain't gonna. Then I have to do something. I have to watch something twice. I'm about money, not accuracy, motherfucker. No, I'm just kidding. But I do like to watch it live. That's part of like the whole jam, though. You know.
And they're contradicted later, and then they just don't even bring it up. But maybe he's a mind reader. Let's watch.
The tradwife trend doesn't exist in isolation. It's linked to deeply regressive political and social movements, such as Christian and white nationalism. And
it might be, but I think that it's okay to have a little more of a traditional relationship. And you're not linked to KKK Hitler. You know what I mean? I think that you can, just in general, in the real life, you can do it. You know, I don't know that everybody's that actively aware. You know, maybe in the online space. But, like, I think that there are some people, they might be a little bit regressive in their thought. But offline, they're just like, I love my husband. He's a God-fearing Christian. And then, of course, you know, he's a priest. And, you know, priests do. They preach. But okay.
Anti-feminism.
I just feel like sometimes the discourse online gets a little hyperbolic. I don't think it's always that crazy. But okay.
Well, we knew they couldn't make it the whole video without calling someone far right. Ignoring the fact that I bet if you actually surveyed the women who run these tradwife channels, none of them listen to Nick Fuentes.
Me, when I make stuff up, I love the way he does that. I bet if you asked these people this thing, they'd say what I think, because that's...
I think I kind of get what he's saying, though. Like, there is a little bit, it's a little hyperbolic. I don't think that just because you're a traditional wife means that you have to be, you know, like a Nick Fuentes loving, et cetera, et cetera. You know, some people just prefer to do that. But okay.
That's how statistics work.
Statties.
Connections can also be more explicit.
Sorry, when you read that.
That's how statistics work.
Also, later in the video, Ash shows an example of literal neo-Nazi tradwife. Okay, well, you know.
Connections can also be more explicit. One mumfluencer called Wife with a Purpose.
I could probably show you like a Jewish guy that loves Hitler, but that doesn't mean that most Jewish people do love Hitler. In fact, they don't like him. Okay, me neither. Hot take. Bad guy.
Issued a white baby challenge, calling on women to have as
Steve Kingley Riley said, "We can't restore our nation with someone else's babies." I'm issuing. Oh, Jesus, that's very racist. Okay, there's no defending that. White baby challenge. Oh my goodness. Well, maybe she means that you're just going to roll the kid in flour and cook it. You know what I mean? Just don't burn it then. Who is that? That's really weird.
One mumfluencer called Wife with a Purpose issued a white baby challenge, calling on women to have as many white babies as possible. This is an idea.
Well, listen. But here you go. You ready for this? This is not actually accurate, but I'm going to pretend it is. What if she's trying to fight the one drop rule? The one drop rule says that if you have any something non-white in you, that you're not white. But what if she's saying white baby challenge, or white people sleep with somebody that's not white, the baby's still white? It's a conversation about racism, really deep, really woke. Maybe that trad wife is just a deep woke person trying to reverse the one drop rule. Did you think of that? Huh? You didn't think of that because you're not woke enough. I'm fucking thinking 18 leagues above you. I'm all over this shit.
Is central to neo-Nazism.
I love how showing a Christian nationalist and then a white nationalist is just calling people far right with no basis. They are those things. They are self-proclaimed. You can see it in the vote. It's look at the shirt. Listen to Nick Fuentes anytime he's talking. That's what he is. It's okay to just like live in reality, you know.
Hitler was a pedophile and kind of a pagan. It's like, well, he was also really fucking cool.
We knew they couldn't make it the whole video without calling someone far right.
He also just once again puts words in her mouth. She didn't say that the women that run these tradwife accounts listen to Nick Fuentes. She said something different than that, which you can run it back and listen if you want, but it wasn't that.
Also, how are Christians regressive? I mean, Muslims have traditional values. Are they regressive too?
Yes. Listen. I love God. I need to love God. Because I love my wife so much, I need to believe that there's something after that'll keep us together. That's not a joke. I said it sarcastically, but it's not a joke. And I respect people who have religious ideologies. I believe that at its core, that everybody should work on something for their mind, body, and spirit. And I think that religion can be fantastic at the spirit part, right? But there are some regressive ideologies or values associated with that, like homophobia. It's bad. It's a bad thing. That's not a good thing. I don't know if you guys know that. And so, like, yes, those traditional regressive values can be very bad sometimes. That's just a fact. So, yeah.
It's weird that only one religion was mentioned during the entire video. But again, you're just saying things are bad with no reason why.
Well, I think it's because the trad wives tend to be more Christian. You know, God bless. What's like Allah bless? You know, is that Allah? What is it? Am I allowed to say that? I don't know. What is it? What's the same thing? Praise Allah. Praise God. Praise Him. All right. Every different iteration of God is just God having a different OC. If you really think about it, he's role playing. Kind of bored. I mean, I would too. Think about that. If I was an omnipotent force, I would just make multiple versions of myself out of boredom. I'd be like, I'm bored, bro. Let's start something a little bit different. Let's do something a little bit different, but like the same. You know what I mean? Like when you go from playing an arms warrior to like a red paladin. You know, it's the same thing basically, but it's a little different. So.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry, I had to put on a coat because
you're
just a chilly
Am I saying
boy.
that right?
He asked the question here, how are Christians regressive? But that's not what she said. She said that Christian nationalism and anti-feminism are regressive. And those aren't the same thing as Christianity. It's really nice that when he's done making what he thinks is a point, he says, also. Really makes it easy to debunk each thing he says because they're separated, nice and easy. Bringing up the fact that Ash is a Muslim and finger-wagging. Well, actually, to an argument she never made. It's goofy behavior. That's what I would call it. Goofy behavior. Preaching to the choir behavior. Because they don't care. They aren't intellectually logged in. They are getting mad. This video is making them mad. It's supposed to make them mad. And it's succeeding. It is 99% likes.
It's part of a wider shift of young people being dissatisfied with neoliberalism and wanting social change.
I have no idea what she just said, so I'm going to go by what the red highlighted text says.
I'm uneducated, and I'm making that your problem.
What did it say?
What she just said.
People being
A misguided expression of the desire for social change. Oh, I think that there's a positive desire for social change. You know, you got all these systemic issues. And not even just systemic racism, guys. Class issues are also a form of oppression.
dissatisfied with neoliberalism and wanting social change.
I have no idea what she just said, so I'm going to go by what the red highlighted text says.
I'm uneducated, and I'm making that your problem. I remember there's some old anti-SJW videos that did the same thing.
So like most people who grew up immersed in the neoliberal ideology of the West.
What? Neoliberal ideology.
What is that? What is neoliberal ideology? I mean, I guess I don't really know either. Neoliberalism is contemporarily used to refer to market-oriented reform policies such as eliminating price controls, deregulating. Is this the right thing? I don't know. I'm just going to be stupid and continue.
The West. Let's just break that one down for a moment, shall we? Neo,
sorry.
meaning new.
Stop
Liberal,
burping. I'm
the
really
idea that the world should be governed on a principle of liberty and equality for all people. And this is supposed to somehow be a bad...
Oh, is it like those guys that are like, hey guys, let rich people run the police force because, you know, they'll do a good job and care about you, and we should what is that thing called? Oh man, it's on the tip of my tongue. Anarcho-capitalist kind of stuff. Is that what it is? Like the Silly Goose Award? That's what we're talking about, I think. That is a little bit silly. Are people who want to like get rid of the government? Is that what we're talking about? Am I right about that? Right.
Thing to think.
Loudly proclaiming that you don't know what a word means. It's supposed to be like a comedic thing, like, oh, the woke left is going so far with their terms, they're just making words up. When neoliberalism is really a politics 101 concept, at least understanding the basics of the term and what she's trying to say here. It's not a simple concept, but acting like it's a new thing it's silly. You know, it's silly.
I have no idea
That's
what she
silly.
just said, so I'm going to go by what the red highlighted text says.
Okay.
A misguided expression of the desire for social change.
Whoa, this guy's getting
Again, just
dumpstered.
one little example of what you're talking about to show why the trend is bad. I understand that this is like an outline of your speech, but at least give me a teaser so if I only watch the intro, I know why this is bad, as opposed to only knowing that this is bad.
Well, you shouldn't really you shouldn't really base the video on solely its introduction. If we were able to get every point out in our intro, then we might not need to make the whole video. Hot take. Incredible stuff. So silly. So silly.
Oh my god, dude. Oh my god, he admitted. He's just admitting it. This is responsible content creation 101. It's one thing if you're a viewer and you need a little bit more context in the introduction to a video, but you're a content creator making a critique. You are critiquing the ideas here, you disagree with them. You are so lazy that you can't just watch the video first. That's all you have to do, is watch the video first. I need a little treat, a little teaser before I can decide if I want to eat the meal.
Surely between calling your opponents far-right extremists and all that expensive and fancy editing, you can afford to do that.
Shit.
But maybe it's not
expensive and dude, he's hitting you with the capitalism class issue. He's telling you that you're part of the bourgeoisie for having fancy editing, but I'm the proletariat working class. You're the bad guy. That was fucking insane, dude. Holy moly. That's crazy.
The purpose of a media outlet that clearly bleeds money to be honest about their portrayal of info. And when I say bleeds money, I mean that this 300K sub channel called Novara Media has trouble hitting 50K views on an average video, yet somehow is able to afford a staff of multiple pundits, editors, expensive equipment, and a studio. With all these expenses, there is no way this channel makes money, so clearly someone is paying for this information to be spread.
This is where a fun...
All right, so this is Think Before You Sleep, pushing a conspiracy theory that their ideas aren't profitable, but they're still investing money into it because they want to spread propaganda. It's not enough anymore to just disagree with somebody. It has to be propaganda now. That's a little bit silly. I'm sure that they have other revenue streams that help them put it onto YouTube. They might be a big business or something that's taking a financial hit to put things onto YouTube, but maybe they mostly post it on another channel. I don't know. I haven't watched it. There's could be 1,000 different, different things there. But okay, continue.
Conspiracy begins. He speculates that this channel must be bleeding money, while not mentioning the fact that they have thousands of donors and paying subscribers outside of YouTube. He mentions it later, but that's why this claim that they're bleeding money.
Like maybe it's like a Daily Wire type thing where they're like, "Hey, come watch us on the old, Daily Wire," and it's mostly YouTube. While it is supposed to make money as well, it's mostly just a tactic to get you to go off onto another platform.
Money is speculative at best and dishonest at worst. Also, to be clear, this is a media organization that is building a YouTube presence, and just because that YouTube presence has yet to become profitable on its own, somehow means that there must be secret people behind the scenes pulling the strings. This gets really good, though.
Probably George Soros, am I right? I'm just kidding. I don't know anything about George Soros. That was a mocking joke at the far right-wing people who constantly bring up George Soros. I don't know anything about the guy. Okay. I do know about another old guy called Orville Redenbacher. Makes popcorn. It's not bad.
Our media. Who is this presenter, Ash Sarkar? Well, I found this video of her on Piers Morgan where she says this.
Because I'm literally a communist.
That's not a shock.
Oh no! That's it? That's all she says, that she's literally a communist? She probably is not literally a communist. She's probably like a Bernie communist. Based, am I right?
But what is a shock is that you can buy jewelry of that quote or t-shirts that say Marx on them on the Novara Media website shop, which is very capitalist of them.
Got him!
Wait, did that jewelry page say topple and burn? Yep, it did. You can't make this stuff up. A group of communists literally partnered with a company called Topple and Burn, which really just signifies the sort of violent behavior that communists are known for. This stuff is just right in your face.
You know, he's actually got a point here. Topple and Burn is a pretty dangerous dog whistle. Some of you may recall the January 6th protesters decked out in their merch. As soon as you put on the necklace, it makes you storm the White House. It's true. Many are saying this.
Anyway, then I stumbled across their Support Us page where it says, defy billionaire-backed media.
I would say it's not a good thing to have like a topple and burn kind of a thing. It's like to be absolutely honest with you, there's a lot of people who do this, whether this is on the right or on the left, but there are these power fantasies where people, you ever seen people with the power fantasy? That's what that's the emotion that gets invoked when you watch a Steven Seagal movie. You're like, I wish somebody would try to hit my wife so I could beat them until they're dead. Like, that's the power fantasy. And I think everybody wants to experience that power fantasy in some capacity. Everybody has these visions. For some people on the left, it's like, I want to overthrow the fucking government. I want to go protest and riot. I want to weaponize black issues to destroy black neighborhoods, like some people do. And of course, that power fantasy on the right is, oh, this election was stolen. I'm going to go overthrow the government. You know, everybody wants to feel like this moral, virtuous, they want to feel justified in their violence. And it's actually a pretty not good thing. So it's just interesting. It's interesting that everybody has this weird innate desire. You know, we've all been there. You know, at school, got your crush, and you're like, oh man, there's the bully, and he keeps giving me a wedgie. I wish I could beat him up. And then, you know, you have this whole entire in your head thing where you beat up the bully and you save the day, and then everybody's like, oh my God, you're so cute, Brandon. I don't know. And you're like, yeah, I know, I am. And you kiss the girl, and then, you know, just like in Revenge of the Nerds, you go and you sexually assault some girl by not telling her that she thinks that you're her boyfriend. And then she's like, wow, you were really good in bed. I forgot that you just raped me, right? So that's the power fantasy that is of Revenge of the Nerds. Incredible stuff.
and back truly independent journalism. I wish I recorded my initial laughter while reading this because I work in this industry, and there is no way that they could afford this staff with a small YouTube channel and independent donors.
I work in this industry. You have a YouTube channel, man. You have a YouTube channel. Anyone with a blog is just working in the industry now. And look, I get that he's trying to say he has a YouTube channel, it's successful, he understands the rough breakdown of ad revenue and things like that. Still very funny to call having a YouTube channel working in the industry. The industry he doesn't work in, though,
it's really just like a, hey, I'm bigger than you, so I'm better than you kind of a thing. There's nothing productive about the conversation.
Was the journalism industry, the one that takes into account the donors and speculates on another channel's earnings. Pocket watching. This is called pocket watching. I'm gonna skip ahead after this part because he's just doing a thing where he's just like being kind of mean, I guess.
Novara Media wants you to know that they know what the cool kids are into.
Mainstream media. Mainstream media sucks.
Oh, it does. It sucks. I'm a little bit of a shill for mainstream media. I do sometimes. I understand the desire for alternative media sources, but the reality is that like all mainstream medias are objectively more honest. I'm not saying they are fundamentally honest or good. They sensationalize media and promote bad narratives and whatnot sometimes. But they're more honest and like they have to be a little bit more credible than, you know, Joe Schro down the street, you know, shitting his pants and talking about how he wants to, you know, topple the government because there's Pizzagate, you know, all this other stuff. You know, I understand the frustration with mainstream media. 100% accurate, makes sense. But let's be honest here with ourselves. So.
Amazing dance moves, Ash.
Why are you shitting on Ash's dance move? She's just having a good time in that video. Come on, man. I challenge you, think before you sleep, to post a video of you dancing and see how people on the internet talk about you. Just saying. He uploads a stock image of Aruba bouncing up and down or something. What? I'm literally one of the images. I'm dancing. This is me dancing.
Now let's...
I'm sorry. That was funny. That was a little bit funny. I didn't think this like a little bit of kind of weird, like, you know, I don't know, weird cringe kind of lefty, humor just got me because this motherfucker only puts up stock images we've watched so many of his videos. I'm sorry, hold on. I don't know why that hit me. That was kind of funny. I like that. I'm watching it again.
He uploads a stock image of Aruba bouncing up and down or something. What? I'm literally one of the images. I'm dancing. This is me dancing.
Now let's go over the numbers. Novara Media boasts...
It's the funniest too. I'm sorry. It was kind of close. Okay, sorry.
That they, at the time of the video, had 200,000 subs and 2.5 million monthly views, which sounds like a lot, but it's not nearly enough to accrue 6,000 donors. Okay. I don't know any 200K subscriber channels with anywhere near that number of donors. Okay. I get like double their monthly views. Okay. I have promoted donations in the past on many videos, and I don't even have 200 monthly supporters between Patreon and Subscribestar.
Well, I mean, listen, they're reputable. It seems like, well, I don't know if they're reputable, but they seem to be a larger like media source. So that's just like a weird thing. It's like he's just jerking himself off a little bit here. Still seems like a little gratuitous. What's happening here? Why am I not healing this guy? Oh, he's in a watcher. I'm so silly. I can't heal that.
This one's so good. This one's so good. I've completely failed at building a Patreon audience, so everyone must also do that. Again, the logic here is just bonkers.
Yeah, it's interesting how like successful some people can be with different things. You know, there are TikTokers with like 100K followers that like make money off of it through properly advertising. Then there's people with millions that can't make anything off of it, even if they get better views. It really just is about like the engagement with your brand and whatnot. That's why when I drop merch, I'm gonna make $1 million the first year because my people are so loyal. I really got to get my shit together. Drop merch. I didn't elaborate on this point too loud here. The logic is bonkers because the ratio of Patreon subscribers to monthly viewers is not fixed, let alone fixed as low rate of. Okay, yeah. Think before you sleep channel, sure. I mean, if anything, it's almost like a self-report from Think Before You Sleep of like, hey guys, even though I'm a large YouTube channel, people don't actually care about me as much as other thing, right? Like it's just, hey, I make content and people tune in for it, but they don't want to tune in for me necessarily. I mean, that's fine because he's not really a person. He's a person, but he's like a little bit of a Sunny V2. He doesn't really show his face. He doesn't really engage in that kind of, what is it called? I guess parasocial type relationship. He's not really engaging with that kind of a thing. So it's going to be like a little bit different than somebody who maybe shows their face or does more political activism or whatever. It's like when I first started Twitch back in the day, I had like 100 viewers. And I would make $1,500 a week through donations because people loved me so much. And they were home from COVID and they just got their stimulus and blah, blah, blah. And now streaming is not my most profitable revenue anymore. It's like video posting. Things just change. It is what it is, especially in these trying economic times, guys. All that really keeps us going is ad revenue. And that's okay. Sorry. One counter example is my channel. Okay, I don't care. You guys are all weird. striking each other off for how many Patreons.
The reason I'd imagine no one wants to sub to his Patreon is because he's not a particularly entertaining or talented creator. He just shovels the right-wing slop into the audience's mouths. This is modern-day Fox News. They sit there and they watch. They get mad at the source material because it's being misrepresented, of course. And then they go on about their days. Paying extra to hear more of this guy's voice? No thanks. None for me, thanks. I thank you, but none for me, thanks.
And I don't even have 200 monthly supporters between...
He might also not offer anything on his Patreon. That could be it too. They might offer a lot more on there, so people are more willing to sign up and stay and whatnot. So
in Patreon and Subscribestar. So who gave them the exposure to get thousands of donors? You would need monthly views at least in the tens of millions to get that.
Go right now to any of the top pages on Patreon. Think before you sleep. I'm talking to you. Maybe you'll respond to this, maybe you won't, but if you're watching my video, go to the thing and look at the viewership. They don't need 10 million. They don't even need 1 million. It's just you need to just have a good content and a good relationship with the audience. It's hard for you because you do propaganda and they don't care about you. They care about getting mad. That's it. Okay, this is where the real expose begins. Here we go. This is good.
Here's where things get more interesting. I went to this website here and found that Novara Media partners with a group called the Media Fund, who also partners with a group called Open Democracy. Open Democracy receives money from the Ford Foundation, and it also received hundreds of thousands of dollars in 2021 from the Open Society Foundations.
Notice what just happened there. He just jumped from one thing to the next thing to the next thing without proving a real connection. Novara Media partners with the Media Fund. The Media Fund partners with Open Democracy. Notice Novara Media doesn't partner with Open Democracy. It's a guilt by association. There's an intermediary party. Party.
Some of you tinfoilers might already know who runs the Open Society Foundations.
I don't.
But for those of you who don't, let's go to their
Barack
website.
Obama?
Oh, look, it's billionaire George Soros.
Oh, shit. Dude, I got it. I guessed it. We did a George Soros. Who gives a shit? Who cares who the donor is? I don't understand. Like, what is up with George Soros? Why does this guy get bullied so much on the internet? Is it because he's Jewish? I'm not even kidding. Isn't that like one of the things? He's like a Jewish guy, so it's easy to throw those anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. Right? Everybody was telling that he was funding people coming up from crossing the border illegally. Like, people are insane. I don't understand. I remember that during, whatever, when Trump was in the old office, the old Oval Office. So,
I swear, when you study this stuff enough, it feels like all paths eventually lead to George Soros.
Okay, that's a weird comment there.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a weird comment there. Why? Why would you say that? What if I said the same thing about Amazon, Jeff Bezos? Amazon bad. Although there is an argument to that, since people can't even go pee-pee without, learning a book report first or whatever. Kind of shitty.
But again, Novara Media is not funded by George Soros. This is full speculation and guilt by association, dressed up as investigative journalism. It's horrible. It's hilariously bad.
We're free for all to access, free from ad partnerships, free from paywalls, and free from the influence of the super rich.
Yeah,
the founder of Novara Media, this guy here, Aaron Bastani, has also written for the George Soros-funded Open Democracy, and Novara Media did a podcast with Open Democracy's founder as well. So who exactly is funding you again?
My favorite tech YouTuber did an interview with Bill Gates, and ever since then, it's all woke 5G vaccine propaganda. Again, trying to prove a link by association. So snarky and smug, and just so obviously wrong and.
Well, it's also just lazy. Like, what if you're somebody who enjoys this content? Like, what is your expectation of this individual? Like, you should feel insulted. Like, it seems like a lot. I'm not going to watch his full video. I guess I could have. Maybe I should have done that. I don't know. But maybe I will. I don't know. Either way, it's just a lazy point to make. If that's a heavy amount of the video, it seems a little bit lazy.
Reaching.
Also, according to The Guardian, this group called the Media Fund that Novara Media is a part of has all sorts of regulations, which means not only do they probably have billionaire donors, but they also have a politically driven regulatory organization that they have to adhere to.
The National Union of Journalists.
Sure. I think their point was that it's just free, but,
This code of conduct, which is to demonstrate a commitment to factual and accurate reporting, and within a year of joining, become fully unionized workplaces. It does say new partners must be approved by existing partners, suggesting that right-wing outlets are unlikely to be selected. But again, does that prove an agenda? No, it doesn't. It shows a general trend of the types of publications that get selected. But the wokeism comes before that selection. They're already woke. There's no one telling them to be woke. Again, I'm using woke in the way they understand it. To them, it means left-wing, liberal, anything over there. That's what it means. Shout out to Little Joel.
Hey, booby champs.
Okay, so now we're moving forward to the meat and potatoes here, which is the claim about propaganda. The first claim being it's full of strawman arguments. This video from Ash Sarkar. Let's set aside the fact that the video so far has had billions of strawman arguments and just see what he's got to say.
More importantly, though, and now that we know who's behind this company, this tradwife video from Novara Media is an excellent example of using heavy amounts of propaganda to get you to believe a certain narrative without any actual evidence that what they are saying is true. So let's get back to Ash Sarkar and discuss how the propaganda works by first showing you how they only use one-sided strawman arguments.
Like with the example of finances, the idea of submission is that by giving up her independence, autonomy, and power, a woman will be taken care of by a good and godly man. She serves him, he serves Christ, but only one person is scrubbing out the toilet.
Okay, and only one person is dealing with an asshole boss. Only one person is repairing the stuff that breaks. Only one person is lifting the heavy stuff. Seriously, these feminists love to forget all the traditional male house chores while at the same time being incredibly demeaning and insulting to men in their portrayals.
You know, the reason Ash describes what the male's role is here as just serving Christ is that historically there is an imbalance. The idea that these traditional gender roles are a one-to-one exchange is false. That's why feminists historically have fought for what they've fought for. It's really pedantic to take Ash's outline of this idea and declare—
I just feel like this whole discourse in this is just silly. Like, yeah, I told it before, submission, you know, is different from taking a passive role, I guess you'd say. So that's my issue with it. But
a straw man when it's not even the argument. You're just taking everything she says and breaking it down like it's too much. It's bad. It's dishonest. Like, listen to the next part.
The influence of fundamentalist religion extends far beyond whatever private arrangements a couple may have as part of a household. Tradwife culture is dominated by aggressively anti-abortion, anti-birth control, and anti-sex views.
Sure, probably.
At the start of the video, he makes the point that Ash is declaring traditional gender roles as inherently misogynistic.
Somebody please save us from this deeply misogynistic movement where women are choosing to stay home instead of working a job.
But here she is very clearly refuting that notion.
And look, I'm not saying there's anything inherently degrading about being a mum or making nice meals. I like cooking elaborate dinners. For that matter, my—
Well, she doesn't really say what you said that she said.
boyfriend about being
a job.
But here she is very clearly refuting that notion.
Misogynistic movement where women are choosing to stay home instead of working a job.
But here she is very clearly refuting that notion.
And look, I'm not saying there's anything inherently degrading about being a mum or making nice meals. I like cooking elaborate dinners. For that matter, my boyfriend does too.
Why didn't he delete that part from the beginning of the video? Because he does not care about being honest. That's not the point here. The point here is shovel, 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 shovel.
I like cooking elaborate dinners. For that matter, my boyfriend does too.
Now you might say it's just—
Well, that doesn't necessarily like debunk anything that he said. He said something like, "Oh, some women basically want to be stay-at-home moms," and then she's like, "Hey, there's nothing wrong with being a mom or making dinner." That's not the same thing. Like, you could still be a mom and make dinner and still work. So she's not necessarily refuting it. My real question to her would be like, "Hey, do you think it's okay to exist in this dynamic where the woman stays home and does the woman stuff, whatever, just stays home and does the traditional woman stuff, and the man goes to work and does the traditional man stuff? Do you have an issue with that fundamentally, or is it specifically an issue with submissiveness?" Which I can understand that issue. That's really the conversation, the question I know.
Just a coincidence that she talks about how she can make complex meals while making her boyfriend look stupid. Surely they aren't intentionally trying to make men look bad here.
Okay.
Bro, stop. If that's actually her boyfriend, he probably thought that was funny. Stop. Okay, it's just a joke. What happened? I thought the right was all about jokes. If that was actually him, it was like a silly thing. If my wife did video essays and she wanted it, I would. Who cares? Like, what do you think that's embarrassing for him? That was fucking awesome. He put a whole fucking whisk in his mouth. I always see how many things I could stuff into my mouth at the same time. I love it. I love stuffing things in my mouth. What are you talking about?
This is where we get to this sort of incel vibes from this guy. She plays a clip of him, you know, being silly with the whisker. And he's like, "You're making him look so stupid. How could you do this? He must be so embarrassed that his girl is making him look like a cuck." And it's like, bro.
Yeah, I mean, like, listen, there is some shows or media or whatnot that might, to try to build a strong female character, sometimes they'll just emasculate the men around them rather than, like, make the women strong. That would be what he's speaking to. It happens sometimes, right? That fundamentally is a thing that can happen, but that's not what was said. So that's what he's speaking to there. But it's just a silly. It was just a little bit of a goof. It was a little fun. So
it's a silly clip. It's a silly clip. An example of him making an elaborate dinner and being a little silly while he does it. How is that her making him look bad? It's just funny. Super triggered and sensitive at the slightest hint that a guy is being poked fun at. And he's not even being poked fun at. They're dating. It's fine. It's funny.
Is that her
Chill the fuck out.
Though the idea of women being confined to the home while men do things like go outside and work isn't exactly new.
Is there any comparative description here that doesn't attempt to make men look like crap? Women are confined to the home while men can just do whatever they want. Maybe they go outside and work, or maybe they won't.
I guess.
This video has BuzzFeed levels of self-awareness.
Sometimes that can be a problem, you know, if a man is the financial breadwinner in like these historical conversations, they're the one that controls the money. And so they have to let their wife leave the house and use some of that money. That is something that's historically happened. It doesn't mean that it has to happen. You know what I mean? Like my wife has my credit card right now, and she's in Florida. She's having fun. But I let her go. I'm just kidding. But that's what I guess they're speaking to.
Yes.
She didn't say men can do whatever they want. She said men are working. Somehow he has managed to get lazier than he already was by just completely not listening to a 5-second clip. It's a 5-second clip, man.
You could easily flip this and say that men are forced to do the will of a boss all day while a woman gets to stay home watching soap operas and doing whatever she wants.
Men going outside and going to work, which is what she said.
While men do things like go outside and work,
is in the inverse summarized as women staying home and watching soap operas all day.
I bet if women
I think that this is an interesting thing, right? Because here's what's happening. What that's going through, I think, before you sleep's brain. It's apparently he's sleeping while he's talking. Is this. what we've gotten here is we have like a leftist criticism of the traditional values or traditional roles that are like men go to work and have financial freedom and physical more freedom generally, and women have to stay home and do X, Y, Z and be submissive, which I think submissiveness is a problem. Again, passive role versus submissive, very different. And what we've done is women have said, hey, we don't like this dynamic because we want more financial freedom. And what Think Before You Sleep has done is he said, oh, well, men struggle too. 1,000%. Of course. Absolutely. Yeah, it sucks to work, right? You can get fucked at your job. Being the financial breadwinner, I've been there. It can be stressful. Having to work upwards of 60 hours a week. In fact, there's instances where, hey, who wouldn't prefer to stay home and cook and clean sometimes? I'm sure overworking 60 hours and just being miserable. Absolutely. But we don't have to talk about these issues as if we don't have to talk about them in a way where it's like women are saying mutually exclusively. Is that what I'm looking for? What I'm trying to say is that we can say that both things kind of suck. It's not like that. That's it. Women are just like, hey, I want to work too, even if it sucks. I want to have the freedom. I want to have the choice. That's really what it comes. I want to be able to choose if I want to work. It's really not that hot of a take. I just want to be able to choose to work sometimes. Nobody's saying that it's easy to be a fucking man. Well, some people are saying that, but not, at least that wasn't expressed in this video. So it's one of those things where it's like your male activism is shitting on women for some reason, then it's probably not activism. It's a little bit of silly goosery.
Actually gave men a choice to stay at home versus work for some boss they don't like or for rude customers, a giant portion of them would gladly not go to work.
So here he's being an accidental feminist by promoting the concept of a
I personally wouldn't. I don't think I could do that,
stay-at-home dad. The anti-feminist framing is being a stay-at-home mom is better for you, actually. It's easier and better for you, and you like it. When the feminist framing is you can be a stay-at-home mom, we have no problem with that. All we're saying is that you should have the right and autonomy to choose. Very simple, very simple.
Oftentimes I hear, keep in mind this isn't data or anything, this is just anecdotal. Could have a lot to do with the selection bias and the people who wind up in my office. Okay. But that it's kind of completely acceptable to a lot of my male patients that they have a partner that doesn't earn money and that a homemaker is like a laudable position. But women that I have as patients don't really feel the same way. They're actually very few.
Random clip of Dr. K, which he prefaces by saying this is anecdotal.
Keep in mind this isn't data or anything, this is just anecdotal.
Love that.
So what is he saying? Sorry, I have a smell brain.
Patients that they have a partner that doesn't earn money and that a homemaker is like a laudable position. But women that I have as patients don't really feel the same way. They're actually very few.
Random clip.
So I think what he's saying is that men seem to be okay with having a woman that stays home and does traditional stuff, but women, based on his anecdotal experience, don't want a guy that does the same. Okay, yeah, I guess that shows an inequality. What's his point of bringing that up? Who brought it up?
Dr. K, which he prefaces by saying this is anecdotal.
Keep in mind this isn't data or anything, this is just anecdotal.
Love that. Love that. This guy hates data. He hates it. Just listen to how much he hates it. Listen to what he says next.
They're actually very few.
Yes, as far as I can see, including the many examples of women's testimony that I provide on this channel, the reason that house husbands are almost non-existent is because women generally don't want a man who stays home. They want a guy who makes more money than they do, whether they are politically on the left or the right. This is all compounded by another one-sided...
Sure. I think that's generally true, kind of. I don't think that you see this as much in the real world where, like, everybody's working, like, oh, everybody's at a bus company, type of a dynamic. I think that if we made it more socially acceptable I personally don't think it really matters who makes more money as long as both people are putting in the old college try, right? And you guys are able to be happy and healthy. Of course, women, I would say, probably generally want somebody that makes more money than them, disproportionately more than a man does. But you could argue that some of that is just environmental and the constant, conversation about how men should be providers, et cetera, et cetera. And they should in some capacity, but, stay-at-home dads are chill too. They're all right. They're not so bad, If you can rock it, do your thing, gentlemen. Yeah, sure. I think that some men aren't content being stay-at-home dads either. So, as much. Maybe there's an ego thing there. But hey, let's just make it so that everybody can feel comfortable doing the whole stay-at-home parent thing. And not, not do a double standard.
The feminist lie, which is that housework is unpaid.
As far as I can see, including the many examples from my channel, which definitely doesn't have a particular agenda involved. Definitely not. Editor Noah, just go ahead and scroll through what types of videos he makes and the types of agendas of the people he presents.
Well, you obviously have a left bias. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying. To say he has an agenda and then what you just say you have a bias. Maybe there is more of an argument to that because he makes some silly goosery, but I watched a couple of Noah videos. He's a little lefty boy. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. You know, mine leans to the right, so nothing wrong with that either.
Are made out to be. Okay, I got somewhere to be. It's getting dark. I'm maybe going to finish the rest of this video later. We are 9 minutes in of a 30-minute video, and this video must be jumping up to the 25-minute range.
Why don't you just finish it? It's a weird thing to do. Okay, let's...
You want a 3-part series from this creeper?
Why?
Let me know if you don't, and if you hated this, also let me know. And I'll see you.
Why wouldn't you just do it in one video, you weirdo?
On the flip. On the Philip. I'll see you on the Philip.
Is this like a new thing he's doing? 20-minute onlys? Oh, it seems a little weird, but... okay, I guess we have part 2.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the channel. It's me, your host, Woke iDubbbz, back with another video. Wait, I'm getting word that iDubbbz is Woke iDubbbz now, apparently. Great, just great. As if Western civilization wasn't falling hard enough already. A few days ago, I did a video on this anti-woke, anti-feminist channel, Think Before You Sleep. If you haven't seen that video, I would recommend watching it so you can have the full context to today's video, and so I can get a bunch of views and money and keep my social media communist grift going. Think Before You Sleep decided to respond to my video in a community post on his channel. His reasoning for that being that he's already responded to Ludwig, Hassan, and Vosh, and we're all the same guy with the same arguments apparently. Of course, I think it's totally fair to opt out of making a video response. He's busy. He's got better things to do, like explain to us how feminism is making women fall in love with Justin Bieber or whatever. It's important political work, and I respect his decision to pursue it. But I am a commentary YouTuber, which means that I do not have better things to do. I have time today. This video is going to be a bit of a slog, so to minimize the sloggery, I'm just going to go through and respond to Think Before You Sleep's main complaints about my video in order of relevance. The full post is linked in the description. You should go read it to make sure that I'm not misrepresenting anything he was saying. Last thing here, at the end of his post, he writes this: TLDR, people I disagree with are wrong. Also, if you don't want to read it, then use text-to-speech. Full screen, a stock image, and it will be just like watching a video of mine. He's got
a little based. TLDR, everybody. Same, dude. If you disagree with me, you're wrong. I like that. I like that. That's confidence. That's confidence, baby. It's confidence.
A sense of humor here, which I think that's good. But instead of doing text-to-speech, I had a better idea. I'm going to soothe the audience's ear wounds suffered in the last video by having someone with a smooth, calming voice read Think Before You Sleep's voice lines. Andrewism is the one. He will be doing that today. Hi, Andrewism.
Awesome. All right, we're doing this with the dog. Noah Samsen. Take 1, take 0, take 2, however many takes this.
I don't know. I'm not feeling the soothingness from this. I was hoping for somebody a little more soothing, like a nails on a chalkboard. I'm just kidding. But okay, whatever. Sorry.
Go check out his channel after this. He uses his same voice over there, and his videos are as good as his voice, which means it's very good stuff. Okay, long intro over. Let's begin. The first critique from Think Before You Sleep that I want to look at is that of hypocrisy. I criticized him for not watching Ash's video in full, and yet I only reacted to half of his video. This is a contradiction. Laziness for me, but not for thee, if you follow. Let's read that now.
Noah only reacted to about half of my video. His video was 21 minutes. Mine...
He'll probably make the argument that he's watched the whole thing already. He just didn't react to the whole thing because he did make a comment about pre-watching. So that would be his argument there. But I agree. He should have just watched the whole thing. It's a little silly that he didn't.
It was 30 minutes. So by his followers' logic, he must be taking me out of context and avoiding crucial points so he can sell a narrative.
By your logic is one of the funnier online argumentation tactics. Its pervasive use was summed up well here in this Vulture article. Feel free to pause and read. But one major problem with the by your logic line of argumentation is that it's often totally vacuous. And that's the case here. In his entire...
I mean, just fundamentally, you should adhere to your own logic, but I get what you're saying.
Our post, Think Before You Sleep, doesn't give any examples where I took him out of context or avoided these crucial points of his. Let's keep reading, though. He continues.
Noah used this as a point to call me lazy and say, just watch the video, bro, which is probably a projection on him because I know he watches/watched Vosh, and Vosh openly admitted to not pre-watching content before he reacts to it when he reacted to my Ludwig video.
Objection, relevance, Your Honor. The prosecution is referencing a very dark time in the defendant's life where he did indeed still watch Vosh.
If Noah actually watched my...
Oh my god, I physically spit onto my... That was disgusting. Holy shit. That was a little funny, though. I got him. Who doesn't like the Vosh hate, bro? You have to love it. You have to. It's funny. It's a funny. Okay. It's a funny thing. Okay.
Full video and didn't just stop at the halfway point like his video does, then he would know that I referenced stuff at the end of the Novara Media video in my video, which means I would have had to watch the whole thing to reference that material.
Okay, now we arrive at my main point for this one. Yes, he does include clips in his video that come up in the end of Ash's video. However, this response totally misses the point of my critique. Evidence that you watched the video isn't evidence that you understood it. When I say watch the full video, bro, watch the video. All you gotta do is watch the video. What I'm referring to is the fact that there are claims made in his video that are directly contradicted by things mentioned later in Ash's. For example, at 28 seconds into his video, Think Before You Sleep says this.
Oh no, women doing housework, child rearing, right wing, traditional. What does this world come to? This is terrible. Somebody please save us from this deeply misogynistic movement where women are choosing to stay home instead of working a job.
But Ash, at just 1 minute and 28 seconds into her video, says this.
I'm not saying there's anything inherently degrading about being a mum or making nice meals.
Yeah, that doesn't counter what he said, though, because she's not saying, she doesn't speak at all in that line specifically to traditional or any type of like stay-at-home mom scenario. She's just saying there's nothing wrong with being moms and making dinner. Just to be clear, she doesn't actually speak against it with that line there. Not directly. Maybe she meant that. Maybe there's more, but that by itself isn't like enough, right? So, okay.
I like cooking elaborate dinners. For that matter, my boyfriend does too. But the trad wife trend isn't just a way to talk about the experience of being a woman and doing domestic labor. It's saying that being a woman or expressing your femininity most fully means doing all the domestic labor.
If he watched the video 3 times, as he later says he did, he would know that claiming multiple times that Ash is trying to argue that being a housewife is inherently misogynistic is dishonest. It's a misrepresentation. But he does it anyway. Whether or not Think Before You Sleep actually watched the video in question is obviously speculation on my part. But if he did watch this video, then by leaving contradictory points in it like this one, he has intentionally misrepresented Novara Media. Another thing to point out here is that Think Before You Sleep doesn't play this clip of Ash, the one that contradicts his entire narrative, until 7 minutes and 28 seconds into his video, despite playing the claims just before it at the start of the video. This allows him to frame Ash in a much more negative light to his audience than is warranted. Okay, the second critique we're going to look at is Think Before You Sleep saying that I misrepresented him by my use of a clip from Sean's video about teal deer. Let's read.
Yesterday, a current Ash former Vosh fan, Noah Samsen.
Again with the Vosh thing. Come on, man. You're being really loud. Seriously, man. I don't need
Vosh is a slur now, dude. That's what it comes down to. And I agree.
people hearing that. If I had to venture a guess as to why he brings that up 4 separate times, I would say that he's dropping a little bit of poison into the well.
Like 5.
Poisoning the well. His audience does not like Vosh. Check the comments on this video for evidence of that. So to me, this feels like he's maybe priming them to not take me seriously or discredit me for my unfortunate former content consumption choices. Maybe not, you know, but also maybe. I don't know. You tell me. Anyways.
Yesterday, a current / former Vosh fan, Noah Samsen, made a reaction to my video on Novara Media with Ash Sarkar. A video where he calls me lazy and dishonest, while at the same time putting so little work into the video that he forgets to clarify to his audience that I and Teal there are not the same person. So I got many people in my comments accusing me of something that I didn't say.
Who the fuck is Teal Deer?
Think Before You Sleep continues on this point later.
He makes a reference to 2014 YouTube and puts Teal there on the screen, who proceeds to incorrectly define neoliberalism and edits the video in a way, probably by mistake, that makes it seem like I said it, which resulted in a ton of people accusing me of something that I didn't say.
Okay, so no, just no. The fact that Teal Deer and Think Before You Sleep are different people is made obvious by a number of contexts.
I thought Teal Deer was just TLDR.
Clues. I preface the clip by saying that Think Before You Sleep reminds me of the old anti-SJW videos. I remember there's some old anti-SJW videos that did the same thing. When the clip plays, the source of Sean's video is displayed clearly on the screen. It also shows the year, 2016, which is well before Think Before You Sleep even uploaded his first video. While both of their voices do have a similarly titanic smugness, Teal Deer has a British accent. I'm here operating under the assumption that viewers will recognize the difference between a smug American accent and a smug British one. If this was a mistake, then I am deeply sorry to all those affected. But when he says that people in the comments are accusing him of saying things he didn't say, what is he talking about? I think this is one of the comments in question. The reason being is that this is one of the only ones from his video that he responded to, and it makes a claim similar to the one that he outlines. You basically just said, all video, I'm uneducated and will not educate myself, so you're wrong. How do you talk about politics not knowing what neoliberalism is? To which Think Before You Sleep responded, that's not what I said. I said the audience isn't going to do that, and therefore constantly using terms they don't understand without explaining them, like the pseudo-intellectuals love to do so they look smart, will confuse the audience and make them tune out.
Yo, there's an argument there. Fundamentally, there's an argument there. Like, sometimes people will use bigger words than they need to use just to sound smart. I believe some of these people will pontificate. I don't know. People do that sometimes, and it's a really weird way of communicating. I think that neoliberalism is kind of part of the discourse, right? If you don't know it, you look it up and whatnot. Is that libertarian? I don't know. I should look it up again because I still don't really get it. Some of the terms are annoying. I mean, it says neoliberalism in contemporary use to refer to market-oriented reform policy. Oh, reform! Market-oriented reform. But how did I read that before? Such as eliminating price controls, regulating capital markets, lowering trade barriers, and reducing, especially through privatization. And oh wait, no, I'm right. It's like fucking. That's like. Is this a bad thing? I don't care. I'm just gonna be stupid. It sounds like more capitalism, right? I think we need the opposite of this, no? Is blue-haired people? I don't know. This is saying neoliberalism is contemporarily used to refer to market-oriented reform policies such as eliminating price control, deregulating capital markets, lowering trade barriers, and reducing, especially through privatization and austerity, state influence. This sounds like a more capitalisms, right? That's probably not good to me. I think we probably need a little more regulation in some areas, but reduction in whatever.
That's not what you said, though, is it? Think before you sleep. Ash said this.
It's part of a wider shift of young people being dissatisfied with neoliberalism and wanting social change.
And then you said this.
I have no idea what she just said, so I'm going to go by what the red highlighted text says.
That was it. You didn't give any examples of Ash's pseudo-intellectualism, and you definitely didn't ever actually explain the term neoliberalism. The joke you made was that you don't know what it means. By your logic, your own audience must have started shitting and farting as soon as they heard you make that joke.
I fucking love shitting and farting, dude. Holy fuck. You think that Noah Samsen watched some of my content? I love saying just shitting and farting and coming. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just random, but I say that shit all the time. I also farted.
Gross. Okay, I do see the appeal of by your logicking someone. It's fun, it's cathartic in a sort of Reddit kind of way. Now, he echoes this point later in his response.
To add the context of that, in my video, I feigned ignorance about not knowing what the term neoliberal means. It's a scripted video, guys. If I generally don't know what a term means, I can just look it up.
This is just playing a goof that he didn't know what it meant. Oh, there's nothing wrong with not knowing what words mean.
First, I love when he says, this video was scripted. If I don't know what a term means, I can just look it up. Because I wrote a video essay, if I got anything wrong, no, I didn't.
Well, what he's saying is it's intentional. He's playing a character, guys, like from Among Us.
Did that as a joke because Novara Media uses the term neoliberalism a lot in the videos that I watch.
Sorry, I have ADHD. It's my fault. I just say things sometimes without thinking.
Yet I never saw them define it.
That's true.
It kind of seems like Novara Media's video is, let's just say you're not the intended audience. Anyway.
I'm trying to cut down on critiquing comedy, but this joke, as he's described it, only works if his audience knows that Navarro Media does what he says they do. But he never explains that. He doesn't even mention it. So how would they know? Regardless of intent, the joke that's being made in the text is that you don't know what neoliberalism is, and that her use of it in that sentence was unintelligible to you.
I have no idea what she just said, so I'm going to go by what the red highlighted text says.
And to be clear, that's a fine joke to make. It is preachy in that it relies on his audience's pre-existing biases about leftist intellectualism or whatever, but there's no need to lie about it. The commenters aren't mistaking you for teal deer. They've recognized that you both basically did the same thing. What is truly hilarious, though, is how similar his response is to teal deer's.
YouTube commenters were quick to point out teal deer's mistake, which led to him claiming it was just a joke, which led to the rather obvious follow-up question: what was the joke? And I guess after getting a bunch of comments explaining his mistake, Teal Deer got sick of it and added the following disclaimer to the video description. To all the people telling me I don't know what neoliberalism is, you missed the joke, so here it is, spelled out for you.
So he made a joke that didn't make any sense, and later tried to retroactively explain the joke by including context that wasn't present in the original video. Context about leftists using terms they don't understand in order to seem smarter than they really are.
I know you're trying to invent a load of bullshit nonsense buzzwords that people can then go home and throw out on their Twitter and Tumblr accounts.
Wait, that's not the same guy?
To try and...
They sound the fucking same, bro. What the hell?
Make themselves look intellectual while they're talking.
Dude, they sound the same.
About some mythic...
They barely sound different. Bro, that smug accent really overtakes. It's more powerful than the British accent.
Patriarchy.
This fits in perfectly with what he says next.
I did that as a joke because Novara Media uses the term neoliberalism a lot in the videos that I watched, yet I never saw them define it, which is a common thing the intelligence... which is a common thing the intelligentsia loves to do to make themselves appear smart when really all they are doing... Am I the intelligentsia? Anyway, which is a common thing the intelligentsia loves to do to make themselves appear smart when really all they're doing is alienating their potential audience who has no idea what they are talking about.
I gotcha. Okay, so you're saying you gotta dumb it down for the stupid heads in the audience. No, like I said, some people will use like overly loaded language. I just don't think neoliberalism was like outside of the general, like it's a political term, right? So there's a difference between that and using like bigger words to that, which make it difficult to communicate. You know what I mean? So, okay, whatever.
Your allegations are just smacking this guy silly. Okay, enough of that. The next point here is guilt by association.
I did enjoy the fact that Noah said he's just saying they are guilty by association toward me when I talked about Novara Media's financial ties, but ignores the multitude of times that Ash relates trad wives to a bunch of people they outwardly don't like and makes them guilty by association. How dare you?
Goalpost shift. He didn't merely talk about Novara Media's financial ties. He continually and explicitly stated that Novara Media is both influenced and funded by George Soros.
Oh, look, it's billionaire George Soros. I swear when you study this stuff enough, it feels like all paths eventually lead to George Soros. The founder of Novara Media, this guy here, Aaron Bastani, has also written for the George Soros-funded Open Democracy, and Novara Media did a podcast with Open Democracy's founder as well. So who exactly is funding you again? Particularly considering that Novara Media obviously has some big funders and is not a grassroots channel. More importantly, though, and now that we know who's behind this company...
They're not. The ties are guilt by association because Novara Media is not partnered with anyone that's funded by George Soros. It's a partner of a partner. Elsewhere in the post, he elaborates on these funding claims.
Soros gives Open Democracy tons of money. He can use that leverage to pit Open Democracy against Novara Media if Novara Media doesn't toe the communist line.
No evidence. Zero evidence for this assertion. Just, he could do this, and I don't have any way to prove it, but he could. He's writing fan fiction for anti-Semites. Quick joke explainer there. I'm not calling Think Before You Sleep an anti-Semite, but insinuating that all information channels are controlled by George Soros is very often used as an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. Love to have to explain my jokes so I don't get jumped on by a bunch of goobers.
But really, if Novara Media wants to show people they don't have any elite investors, then show us a full audit of your 10,000 donors.
Wow.
As far as I can see, they don't do that. We might not find...
Donald Trump, release your taxes. Right? That's what he's saying there. Release your taxes. I want to see them. And release Texas. Okay, weird joke.
Billionaire investors, but we could very well find multimillionaire investors. Ironically, Open Democracy shows their donors, which makes them more honest than Novara Media.
Again, pay close attention to the language he's using here. We might. We could. Okay, well, you haven't. So until you do, what are you saying? You're just insinuating blame where no blame has been proven. For Think Before You Sleep, innocent until proven guilty doesn't apply to leftists. It only applies to men that have been accused of sexual assault. For some reason. It's weird.
Literally, the Hitler was a vegetarian, therefore all vegetarians are Nazis argument. You can disagree on whether I provided adequate proof or not, but don't then completely ignore it when Ash Sarkar uses the very tactic you're accusing me of. A lot. You don't want to be accused of taking things out of context or avoiding points that inconvenience your narrative, would you? Yeah, Noah, would you?
Oh, shit.
Even if Ash had used this tactic, which she didn't, I'll get into that, but even if she had, that would hold no bearing on the validity of my point. The mere fact that I didn't mention something that you think Ash did is not evidence disproving my argument. He also ignores my critique here by just saying that you can disagree. I did disagree, and you just didn't address it.
I'll be honest with you. I think it would have been better if Noah just made one video that encompassed all of his criticisms, and then he made a follow-up video after, or didn't. He didn't make a follow-up video. He just kind of did that. I don't know. It would have been nice to have it all comprehensive in one big skidoo, because he feels very broken up because he decided not to do a full video on it.
Yes, the reasons why I disagree. That is pretty important, in my opinion. Like, I get, this isn't a full response, this is a text post, but do that just once, that's all I'm asking. He later reiterates this misinterpretation of Ash's words.
The reason I spend so much time fact-checking is so I don't make mistakes like arguing that a significant portion of trad wives are neo-Nazis based on a tweet that had 6 likes on it.
She never argued that, though. Hey, come here. Think before you sleep. Where did she argue that? Cite where she argued that. You can't? Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Now, what Ash did say was this.
There's an overlap, therefore, between the tradwife trend and white nationalism.
Okay.
This overlap can be implicit, subtle, and unconscious, taking place through aesthetics. This might be using adverts of white nuclear families from the 1950s to stand in for the universal ideal marriage, or contrasting the ideal tradwife to the stereotypical boss bitch, who's always associated with hip-hop culture and almost always black. This reinforces the idea that ideal, most elegant, and most desirable model of femininity is white tradwife to the stereotypical boss bitch, who's always associated with hip-hop culture and almost always black. This reinforces the idea that ideal, most elegant, and most desirable model of femininity is white European.
Which is obviously a much more nuanced take on the issue than Think Before You Sleep makes it seem. Just like...
I would argue, maybe, I don't know, that seems like a little... I like to say, maybe it's not that deep, Maybe that is, maybe that's true, that's interesting. When I think of boss bitch, Beyonce, right? I don't know, Missy Elliott, I don't know. So maybe, I don't know, it seems like a little bit of a reach, but it could be true. Could be true. Might be true.
in his video, he reduces her perspective down to she thinks a lot of trad wives are Nazis, when that's just nowhere to be found in the video. I just want to say a few more things here before we wrap this video up, because I know it's dragging on. Here's Think Before You Sleep scolding my audience a little bit, but it doesn't solve the problem of people thinking that they have these amazing critical thinking skills while simultaneously only being able to repeat their creator's talking points verbatim, which is a problem because the creator didn't put the proper amount of OCD into his video to make sure things were reasonably accurate. If Think Before You Sleep has a problem with audience members going around repeating talking points verbatim, he should check the comment sections of literally any of the videos that he...
Well, he qualified it and said, but you're wrong. So repeating your talking points is bad because you're wrong, not because it's fundamentally bad. But no, you're absolutely right. I'm sure the people on his videos harass the people that he makes videos about.
He's responded to. The Novara Media one is a good start. Came to the comments, wasn't disappointed at all. If Ash is a Muslim, as she has claimed in the past, surely she would be aware of the traditional family structures that are a foundation of the vast majority of Muslim families. Or is it only bad when the Christians do it? Does that sound familiar to anyone?
How are Christians regressive? I mean,
didn't you guys watch Cuties? It was a commentary on how regressive or Islam can be very regressive and oppressive to women, and that's actually what it was about. There was some stuff in there that I wasn't a fan of. The dancing, not a big fan, but that's what it's about. And then it's about how, like, I guess, like, the Western, like, going too far to sexualize yourself is also very bad. And it's more about just being a normal kid, you know, kind of a coming of age story for a lot of younger girls. Probably resonates with a lot of younger girls and an age of over sexualization in social media. Yeah.
I mean, Muslims have traditional values. Are they regressive too?
We're totally independent from billionaires. Disclaimer, George Soros doesn't count as a billionaire because, these clowns are so good at making themselves look like hypocrites, pointing it out almost feels like bullying. Here's one of his viewers just openly spreading the lie that George Soros funds Novara Media. Where could he have gotten that information from? Oh, damn, I want to be a non-trad husband. Staying at home while my partner works would be a lot easier than having a job. Those husbands are suckers.
I bet if women actually gave men a choice to stay at home versus work for some boss they don't like or for rude customers, a giant portion of them would gladly not go to work.
So attentive viewers may have noticed that every single one of these points are points that are directly pulled from Think Before You Sleep's video. And if it seems like I'm making a buy your logic point here, that's not what I'm trying to do, because I sincerely do not really care about this type of thing. Part of having a large channel is that a certain subset of your viewers are going to go and repeat the things you've said without necessarily adding anything new, adding some of their perspective. I don't like it when people do that, but some people just do that, and there's not much you can do to prevent it. The difference here, though, is that I'm not citing that as evidence of an inaccurate video. Think Before You Sleep is doing that. We are not the same. Okay, last point, I promise you, here we go. In this pose, Think Before You Sleep repeatedly cites the amount of time he spends on his videos, and contrast this with the amount of time that I must spend on mine. How does he know that? Well, reasons.
So I'm not sure that Noah has the work ethic to do this level of work that I do.
Oh shit, throwing shit.
I saw the party video that he showed on the screen and it wasn't good. Whatever. Though I'm not sure that Noah has the work ethic to do this level of work.
I don't care about how much work people put into things. I really don't give a shit. Okay, guys, it's based to not do work. But I will say I've watched Think Before You Sleep's videos. There's nothing really going on there. It's just mostly like it is a pretty typical right-wing talking points. It doesn't mean that it's bad inherently just because it's right-wing, guys. Don't worry. I'm just saying. I also don't put a lot of effort into my videos, clearly. My point is that, like, this idea, I put so much work in it. Do you? You know? That's interesting. Well, you know what? I was the accelerated kid in school. I didn't have to put in work. I still got A's. That's how I make all my content. But however long the video is how much work I put into it. But, dude, I just got fucking slobber knockered. Holy fuck. Jesus Christ, this is fucking wild. Okay.
That I do for my videos, because he self-admitted to only spend an hour on one of his scripts by saying roughly, sorry there were so many mistakes in my video. I only spent an hour on the script.
Fuck?
If need be, I can go dig that quote up, but I believe he said it because he has some beef after losing a morality battle with Vosh.
Why does he keep arguing with me using the reanimated corpse of a 2-year-old drama? What's up with that, you know? I love that he keeps doing this. Instead of addressing the points made in my video, he brings up various unrelated points to speculate on the accuracy of my work, without actually providing his reasoning, you know? It is cowardly behavior of the highest order. The important thing to remember here, though, as I mentioned before, is that spending more time on something is not on its own evidence that that thing is good. James Cameron spent 39 years of his life working on Avatar, and that shit was ass, in my opinion. Of course, that's just my opinion. It was a fun movie, all right? It was a fun movie. I had fun. But for the time spent, you know, I don't know.
I have never once spent an hour on a script. The reason I don't do that is because fact-checking and research is a very time-consuming process. And if you're only spending an hour writing your material, then you basically aren't fact-checking anything. You're just writing from memory. which will cause you to unintentionally misrepresent information.
So this can be summed up as the work harder, not smarter approach. The virgin, I spend years on scripts just for them to still be bad, versus the Chad, I debunked your shit in the same amount of time it takes for me to make a TikTok reaction video. All right, we're done now, but to conclude, think before you sleep. If my work is as bad as you say, respond to it. Properly respond to it in the video. I mean it. It shouldn't be difficult given my lazy, stupid communist tendencies. If you don't want the smoke, that's fine. I don't want to keep you from the reality TV reaction stuff you're normally doing. But the reason I do want to see this is because I do genuinely take issue with the way you continually misrepresent leftist positions on your channel. Egregiously so. You know, that video was egregious. I would consider it egregious. It's a pattern on your channel, and it's not beneath me to cover this pattern for my next 12 videos. If you do respond, my only request is that you try not to proxy argue your case using years-old beef that I have with other content creators, and that you have someone else read your lines so we can stop killing off members of my audience from the blood loss out of their ears. Okay, that's it. Thanks again to my patrons, and to Andrewism for voicing the guy. Go check him out. Great channel. Sources are linked below, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Okay. Yeah, let's watch the original Think Before You Sleep video, which we probably should have watched first.
The number,
but we simply didn't. I thought that it was gonna be. I thought that he was gonna talk about the whole thing in there. All right, there we go, guys. We got to the point of the Noah Samsen video around where it left off. So we're gonna continue from here. We actually did watch the full thing for people tuning into the actual video afterwards. Nothing changes, so it would be redundant to react to it twice. Okay, let's start from here.
This is presented as a kind of equality. While men and women have separate roles, they are equal in their value.
Sure.
Insisting on the equal value between paid employment and unpaid care work, which, by the way, is a feminist position, hence the Wages for Housework campaign of the 1970s, gets twisted into something much more sinister. Willingly giving up financial independence.
You get paid in the form of a roof being over your head. Do you know how expensive a mortgage is? You get paid in food. You get paid in the form of a car, a cell phone, electricity, water, and internet. And despite getting all this provided, the stay-at-home women are still getting stipends so they can go shopping. This feminist argument ignores the fact that most people aren't...
What does that mean? They get stipends to go shop? Or, oh, they mean from their husbands? Yeah, no, like, I don't think that we need to make housework paid, but also the way that you talk about it is a little weird, that they get stipends. It's just like a little weird, like when you engage in, regardless of whether it's the guy or the girl staying home and the other one working, you engage in an understanding of like that dynamic should be equal, and it's like you would value both of those roles equally, right? So it's being, you know, staying home, taking care of the kids, taking care of the house, et cetera, et cetera. So you're not really getting a stipend. You're just, I don't like the way it just suggests to me that that person who works owns the person who doesn't work, and that's not going to be a healthy relationship dynamic. Which is probably a little bit of another issue with that traditional dynamic, is that it suggests that the person staying home is like less than, but okay.
Walking around with tons of loose cash. If you net $5K a month, then $4,500 of that is probably going to bills and necessities, not fun stuff.
Maybe.
Getting all your necessities paid for, plus a small allowance, is getting paid for housework. And again, what about all the unpaid repair labor that men do around the house? No mention of that. I mean, these arguments have been so well debunked over the past 10 years that it is difficult to say that the constant repetition of things like the wage gap as scientific fact are not nefarious. Particularly considering that Novara Media obviously has some big funders and is not a grassroots channel.
Just to understand,
though really, it seems
just
like,
to be clear about the wage gap, like obviously it's not like 82% or whatever. It's like 99% once you account for, you know, men tend to work longer and they don't have babies coming out of them. At least not back then. Anyway, all jokes aside, all silly goosery aside, okay, guys, I support trans men. All right. Anyway, all jokes aside. There is still a little bit of a discrepancy, which can be explained, I would say, one, with the fact that like women are generally not taught to advocate for themselves as much because it's seen as bitchy, and two, there is some still guys or people at the top that tend to be men that are still a little regressive and maybe won't pay women necessarily as much. But a lot of these inequalities seem to manifest themselves in more managerial roles where women have to advocate for themselves to make more money. Yeah. So just bring that up.
This video is well designed to look statistical and factual, while at the same time not providing any actual evidence that being in a traditional relationship is bad for women. They can do this because they know that most people
it does seem like she's completely against women being in a traditional relationship. It doesn't seem like, because at no point has she said explicitly, like, it's okay to be in a traditional relationship, but submissiveness is bad. It seems like she says that overall it doesn't seem to be positive necessarily. Maybe I'm wrong about that assertion, but before, even when Noah kept saying like, oh no, see, she thinks it's okay, where she was like, there's nothing wrong with women cooking or whatever. She didn't say that, oh, being a mom, you cook and be a mom without being a stay-at-home wife, right? So yeah, sure, maybe she wasn't explicit enough about that. I can agree. I think it's okay to be a stay-at-home anything. It doesn't really matter as long as it works for your relationship dynamic.
going to question their resources. So one of the ways they give the illusion of being scientific is by providing stuff that looks like research that is not actually research.
Okay.
For example,
as Betty Friedan found in her 1963 book The Feminine Mystique, middle-class American women who were living the suburban dream of husbands and housewifery were fucking miserable. Friedan identified high rates of depression, dissatisfaction, and dependence on barbiturates.
Okay.
Women being forced into a life where they were denied autonomy and the use of all of their mental faculties was decimating their mental health.
Maybe it was.
See how it seems like they're providing a resource when they actually aren't? They said that Betty Friedan said that housewives were miserable. Source citation, read the entire book.
Now, anything else I can do for you?
Yeah, maybe read this.
The Feminine Mystique. No way! I love Mystique!
That's not how you cite a resource. This is a 500-page book, and I need to know which specific page you're talking about so I can fact-check you. Ash has a master's degree. She should know that.
I never planned on being a journalist.
So if you don't disagree with what she said, I mean, like, maybe she's right. Maybe women were a little upset that they had to stay at home and they wanted to be valued for a little bit more than that. Are you just saying that they don't have a strong enough source so you can't speak to it, or did you look into like a counter source? Did women that would be the general expectation? Be like, oh no, I found this source that said women loved it. Is there something like that? Did women used to be? I don't even know what I would look up, honestly, so maybe that's what it is.
That's not how you cite a resource.
Maybe read this.
Or citation, like they're providing
the use of all of their mental barbiturates. Friedan identified high rates of depression, dissatisfaction, and dependence on barbiturates.
I don't even know what a barbiturate is. B-I-T-U-R-A-T-S. What is a barbiturate? It's a depressant drug used to help sleep, relieve anxiety, muscle spasms. Okay, prescribed names. Okay, interesting. Were women more depressed in the 60s? I don't even know. What did I look up? How an age of anxiety became an age of depression. In the 1960s, reports historian Laura, there were 3 times as many articles about anxiety as there were about depression. Okay, interesting point. I mean, I wouldn't doubt it. Fundamentally, women just want to have a choice, I guess. So whatever.
The house source has a master's degree. She should know that.
Cool. I never planned on being a journalist. I thought that I was going to stay in academia and maybe do a PhD that no one would read.
I swear these people bank on the idea that you'll never look at their resources, because I actually bought The Feminine Mystique and spent several hours listening to quite a bit of it, and I didn't once hear Betty cite any studies to prove Novara Media's argument that all housewives were miserable. Betty's arguments were based on personal experience, some anecdotes, a handful of interviews she did with high school students, and pop culture magazine articles. Nowhere did I see anything like a randomized survey to see if women hating the housewife life was actually a widespread issue. Now,
well, you'd probably see that in like the sources section, but okay.
There may be some women out there who are unsatisfied working full-time in the home. I've seen that a handful of times in my life, but as for it being a massive issue ruining women's lives in the 1950s, well, that really was just Betty's opinion, not scientific fact. Also, Betty likes Margaret Sanger way too much in that book. If you didn't know, Margaret Sanger's past was so racist and despicable that her own organization, Planned Parenthood, had to disown her because of the backlash after people on the left found out.
Yeah, that's a lot of people, but that's just an issue with the 1950s. It's not even an issue with her. That's an issue with the 1950s. It was normal. That was okay. It's not okay, but I know that this is like an attempt to describe this person. I don't know who it is. I don't really care. But I think that it's difficult to use the moral prescriptions of today and apply them to the past within this context. Because what you're saying is like she's a really bad person because she's racist. Back then, she was a normal person. That was just what people were just loved to be racist. And who can blame them? I mean, have they ever played Call of Duty? No. But so just wanted to make that clear. It's not okay. I'm just saying.
But it's not just the fact that this propaganda outlet doesn't properly cite its sources. They go as far to give completely incorrect interpretation of data just because it fits their bias.
According to Women's Aid, nearly a third of abuse survivors say that their access to money during the relationship was controlled by the perpetrator.
Probably.
Women's Aid what? Where in Women's Aid can I find this? Saying check everything Women's Aid has ever...
Do you not believe that when it comes to domestic abuse situations, which is that speaking to, that it tends to be women where they don't have financial access, which makes it more difficult for them to escape? Or is that... Do you disagree with that take? It makes sense. Okay.
Done is not a source citation. Oh, look, I did their work for them and found the report.
Okay.
It's right here. And after seeing this page, I think I found out why they're so secretive about their sources. This study only surveyed 72 people. That is an incredibly low population size to make such vast generalizations.
I don't know if it is. I'm not super educated on how many people you need to interview, but I remember watching another video, and this person with like a master's degree or something was citing sources, and I was like, those are really low sources. And then somebody in the comments was like, oh, I'm a PhD, or no, they were a PhD student. Some of the comments is like, I'm a PhD student, and that's actually an accurate sample size, which I'm still skeptical, but apparently sample sizes are lower than we think. So, I mean, if your issue is the sample size, I get it. I guess it's 72. But so, do you disagree that women who are being abused may not have access to the financial monies to like run away or escape in some capacity? Is that what you're disagreeing with that? Because that makes sense to me. It sounds like you're just okay, whatever.
About whether a traditional household is a good thing or not. I mean, surveys take like 10 seconds to complete. It's not unreasonable to expect Women's Aid to get at least 1,000 people to answer their survey.
Maybe.
Also, let me frame this statistic differently. Most of the women who are abuse survivors were financially independent. Flipping around the phrasing actually makes it seem like being financially independent leads to more abuse.
I'm not saying that.
No, it doesn't at all. I think that there are multiple conditions to being abused, and they're just saying that in a third of these cases, based on this statistic, women didn't have financial access in some capacity. And if they did, maybe they would have been able to escape their abusers faster. And we're also talking about abuse survivors. So we're not even talking about people who are still in abusive situations. Okay. The way that you interpret information is really bizarre.
Every relationship where men are in
Oh my God, you're fucking something else.
charge of the finances is abusive. Just that giving up your financial autonomy and placing it in the hands of your partner is highly risky if things do indeed go wrong.
That's fair. That's a fair thing to say.
Not by the data you gave.
Oh my God.
Your data says that you are technically less likely to be abused if you're financially dependent because more of the abuse victims were in situations where money was not controlled by the man.
No, it doesn't. Okay.
Sort of related, Jordan Peterson, an expert in psychology.
Oh, come on. You can't be real right now.
Recently said this about relationships with female breadwinners.
It's also the case, too, that if marriages where the wife out-earns or out-statuses the husband tend to be comparatively unstable and violent.
True.
You can do what you like with that Jordan Peterson quote. Now, personally, I don't think money has anything to...
Well, no, you could. For your audience, it's very clear that you're trying to say that women shouldn't be the primary financial breadwinners. How I interpret that information is it's interesting because, yes, relationships are more likely to end if the woman is the one that makes more money. Also, men are like 3 times more likely to cheat. I'm not saying it's men's fault. I'm saying it's interesting. I think that part of it could definitely just be biological, like need for men to maybe make more from an ego perspective. Maybe some of it's more environmental, where men might feel ashamed of themselves for not making as much money or contributing. I could totally understand that. I think if I was making much less money than my wife, I would probably feel some type of way about it. I'd probably be a little upset. You know what I mean? Just from an ego perspective, even if we were all happy and healthy, even if my wife was making like $300,000 a year, I think I'd still be upset because that's just my male ego, right? So, okay.
Do with it, and abusive people will be abusive regardless if you're financially independent or not.
You're being very stupid right now. Yes, abusive people. Oh, dude, you have to be a troll, no?
Money has anything to do with it.
And violent.
You can do what you like with that Jordan Peterson quote. Now, personally, I don't think money has anything to do with it, and abusive people will be abusive regardless if you're financially independent or not.
You shouldn't talk sometimes, I think, on things you don't know about. Abuse is a very tricky subject, obviously, and it just comes off that you're just dismissing survivors of abuse. It's really weird. It's just like, why take this stance? If somebody has control of the money, it makes you less free. It's one of the reasons why women will be the ones to initiate divorce disproportionately higher than men, because they're the ones that don't have as much financial freedom. They can't do as much. Like a man can go cheat, and if they're the one making the money, they have control over that money. And I'm not saying it's all men's fault for relationships ending. The point is that I'm saying that that's a factor. It's silly. Also, just fundamentally, money has a lot to do with abuse. During COVID, and when people are home making less money and around each other more, abuse rates went up. Unfortunately, there is a direct association with money not having it and being more abusive, which is kind of a hard conversation because it makes it seem like you're being sympathetic to abusers. But it's a conversation that needs to be had, because if less homes were under financial constraints in some capacity, you'd see less abuse. Because men are very emotional and they hit women sometimes. I'm not trying to be an asshole. Most men don't hit women, right? We don't hit women, right? But that the way that men release their emotions is through anger. It's just a different emotion for women. And so people who, that's my point.
It's more important to learn about abuse psychology so you can identify an abuser before you commit to them than it is to worry about who's making what money. But honestly, Novara Media's interpretation of the data is so bad that you don't even have to have training in research methodology or data interpretation to realize that they came to the wrong conclusion. The only way you can get away with this stuff is to constantly gaslight your audience. For example,
there's a conspiratorial edge to some of the big tradwife social media accounts, from pushing anti-vax and anti-mask content.
Let's see what they say. So I may lose my job at the hospital over the vaccine, but I'm ready and trust God. Besides, I can't wait to protect my homemaking and future wifey skills. Okay.
Conspiratorial edge to some of the big tradwife.
When you say feminism and the LGBT movement are both part of the depopulation agenda and cause a riot.
Wife social media accounts, from pushing anti-vax and anti-mask content to claiming that feminism and LGBT rights movements are part of a depopulation agenda.
But modern feminism is completely for depopulation. The mainstream left in general constantly says that there are too many people on this planet. And not only does feminism have women like Chelsea Handler gloating about how great it is to be...
Bro, stop. You're just proving her right. There is no depopulation. There are people saying we have too many people. It's not constant, and it's not on the left all the time, right? I don't see a lot of people on the left saying, we have too many people. We need to have less people. So there is not a part of a depopulation movement. I see more people on the right saying that, like, oh, there's a problem with depopulation because it's white. Because it's not white enough. That's what like Nick Fuentes says. Because here's the reality. One thing that's really good for our country is that we take in immigrants. Legal immigration is obviously a good thing. And I think that no way you would disagree with me. Think before you sleep. Right? Because what happens is that, like, people in Western countries tend to have lower birth rates. It is because sometimes women are working more. There are financial constraints there. Like, women will maybe put their career on hold. Like I said, there's financial constraints. There is an issue of not enough, I would say, robust support structures, like, some kind of ability, like some kind of what the hell am I trying to say? Childcare. So maybe some kind of conversation about universal childcare or something in some capacity, or more robust, more robust structures to help women be able to have kids. Right? It's expensive. It's like $20,000 at least in America to have a fucking baby if you don't have insurance. So some kind of a universal healthcare would probably help increasing that. But we don't really have to worry too much about it. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for the large guide. I appreciate that. We don't have to worry about it too much though, because we are able to, because the biggest issue is an aging population where you won't have enough people, young people, to work and support the older people, right? Like, you don't want to have, when it comes to looking at the chart, basically, when it comes to like age, let's say this is a chart here, whatever, we're just gonna do it like this, and let's say 60s up here, and then you have like 20 here. You don't want something that looks like a huge older population and then a dwindling younger population, because then that's less like taxpayer money being collected. And so what happens here, this is what some other Western countries are having this problem, which we don't really have the problem because we're able to subsidize this with like more immigration, right? But I don't see people talking about too much depopulation. You are pushing a little bit of the conspiracy, not speaking to the point that she made about LGBTQ people is also, I think, a bit, you should probably want to qualify that and separate yourself from what those people were saying, which is that like LGBTQ is somehow trying to depopulate us as well.
Childless at 48. But also, what have they been telling women for decades? Don't worry about a family. Use your 20s to go to college and build a career. And then in your 30s, when you burn through most of your fertility window, you can start thinking about having kids.
I don't think that there's anything wrong with having a kid when you're like 28 or something. I don't know about 30s. I don't hear this being said that much. I don't know what we're talking about. I'm sure somebody said it. Okay. I just feel like this is not happening. What's the widespread movement of like, you shouldn't have kids in your early days? Whatever. Okay.
Now, the very important thing I told my daughter and granddaughters. Okay. No serious guys in your 30s. Okay. No what? No serious guys in your 30s.
That's your proof? That's Joe Biden being a funny grandpa. Like, that's very common for like men to tell their daughters or granddaughters or whatever, you can't date until you're 40 or something. That's like a fucking meme. That's a joke. How dude, I guarantee you that this is the type of person that would be like, oh, the left can't take a joke anymore. You can't take a joke. That's a fucking, like, the fact that you don't even know that meme that is interesting to me. You don't know that? That's like a normal, common, like, haha, you can't date till you're fucking 40. Haven't you watched Grounded for Life before? What is you talking about?
This doesn't even account for the many woke and feminist outlets like Cosmo telling young women to also burn their 20s having tons of sexual partners.
I've cheated on every boyfriend I've ever had, and I don't regret it. Yeah, that's bad,
and
sure.
to be unfaithful in their relationships, which are actions that will make them extremely undesirable to stable partners and cause them to end up in an abusive relationship or no relationship at all.
I don't know about abusive. I mean, definitely a toxic one. Sure. Now speak to the manosphere saying cheating's okay. Say that too. Hey guys, Cosmo's doing this. What about the manosphere saying that men cheating is like LOL funny and it's okay and it's just part of men's biology and men can't control themselves because they're fucking pussy hungry animals with no self-control. Like, speak to that. But you won't. You only seem to speak to it to the women bad side instead of the maybe there's some bad stuff overall. This is so stupid.
So much for keeping you safe, right? You think a cheater is going to find a healthy relationship?
No.
But you don't even have to look outside of Novara Media to find depopulation propaganda.
There is none.
It's in the very same video where Ash Sarkar gaslights the audience and says it doesn't exist.
Where?
Middle-class American women who were living the suburban dream of husbands and housewifery were fucking miserable. In the 1950s, the average age of marriage for women was falling, and the number of children they were having was rising.
Why do you say high birth rates like it's...
What the fuck? Oh, I guess it's like 18.
Age of marriage for women was falling.
Okay.
And the number of children they were having was rising.
Okay.
Why do you say high birth rates like it's a bad thing?
I don't think that she did. I just want to know the rest of her point.
It's a completely
so I could see if she did say it as a bad thing.
Negative connotation to her statement, especially when misery is described right before it.
I don't
but
know.
You know all those Social Security and welfare benefits you woke types like? Well, those are funded by a growing population. If the population stops growing, then you don't have the tax base to pay for Social Security. You can enjoy that when you literal communists become old. There are so many examples of depopulation agendas going on, like this stuff that
wasn't an example. She was just saying that there was higher birth. I want to know what else she had to say. What else did she say? That by itself doesn't...
It says.
So you've got a thing on the left, CO2, that you want to get to zero, and that's going to be based on the number of people and the CO2 being put out per unit of energy. So let's look at each one of these and see how we can get this down to zero. First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people.
Okay.
That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
Interestingly enough, I also found this clip during that...
Oh, okay. Sure. I guess that could be a factor.
BB Kmenkai
Oh, thank you so much for the gifted membership. Sure. Okay. I mean, I don't really see too much of an issue with us not necessarily having our lower... I mean, we're going to hit a point. I don't know if we're at that point eventually where we have too many people and overpopulate there. That is something that could happen. I don't know what number that's at. But I think he's just speaking to better vaccinations and like keeping people alive, because traditionally a lot of people have a lot of kids because sometimes they might die in the past. But okay, I don't think that feminism is part of an active depopulation campaign is the problem. Like, you're proposing a conspiracy theory because Bill Gates said a thing that feminism is a depopulation and LGBTQ as well, because that was another argument, is an active conspiracy. Is it causing to lower, you say, native birth rates? 100%, but you can mitigate some of those through, like I said, like better universal healthcare, universal childcare in some capacity, things like that. Even universal, I'd say preschool is a good idea too, because Head Start programs were really positive when it came to kids developing. Yeah, okay.
Bill Gates speech.
In fact, if you could pick just one thing to lower the price of to reduce poverty, by far you would pick energy.
And now we know why the price of gas and other forms of energy have been inflated to a ridiculous amount. It keeps people poor. Also, let's go back.
No, it's because Russia is engaging in trying to take over Ukraine, and the energy prices have gone up, I believe, because we aren't buying from them. Okay.
To Betty Friedan's praise of Margaret Sanger, who was a well-known depopulationist. Read one of her books like The Pivot of Civilization. She founded Planned Parenthood to lower the population and practice eugenics. That sentiment is right in the last couple of pages of that book.
Of the insane and feeble-minded and the encouragement of this operation. What? Sterilization of insane and feeble-minded, and the encouragement of this operation upon those afflicted with inherent or transmittable diseases, with the understanding that sterilization does not deprive the individual of his or her sex expression, but merely renders him incapable of producing children. That doesn't speak to depopulation. That speaks to like eugenics, like you said, and that's not widely accepted in any capacity when it comes to people with mental health issues at all. In fact, I guess you'd say the left wants to provide some kind of universal health care to help those people to be able to get themselves balanced and not to genocide them. So I'm not saying the right wants to get rid of those people. I'm just saying that doesn't hold up when you're speaking broadly into like this narrative of the left, which doesn't exist, to, I don't know, get rid of people with disabilities. But okay.
And what this all doesn't account for is the many people who are being hit by this feminist Sex and the City propaganda, who are getting into their mid to late 30s and realizing that they wasted their fertility window and are now too old to have kids.
I'm sitting here with just this horrible realization.
Wow.
I've been divorced for 3 years, and in that 3 years, I have spent most of my days figuring out how I can become physically, mentally, financially, spiritually healthy enough to be able to afford and take care of a child. And not only have I taken that time, but I've done the math, and it does not work out. I am not young enough, or fertile enough, or financially
I'm
stable
not laughing
enough.
at her.
So again,
okay, a lot of that had to do with money, just so you know. Again, the left is generally trying to reduce poverty and empower the middle class. I would say Democrats aren't doing a great job, but Republicans aren't even coming to the table. They're obsessed with LGBTQ shit. They don't have any reasonable reform. So, like, yeah, she got older. She also is like really complaining that she has no fucking money. And I don't think it's unreasonable to say that part of her complaint might be, I don't have time to make enough money to have a kid. So, okay. Like, what are you getting out of this? Hey, guy, let's say that it's a huge problem that women are regretting. Let's say 50% of women are regretting that they didn't have babies early enough because feminism bad, which is just not real. What are you saying? Feminism is bad? Or do you think that maybe we say like, hey, feminism is good, but girls, you should have more babies? And then when they say things like it's expensive to have a baby because it costs $20,000 just to have a fucking child in the hospital, they say, oh, what if we figured out a way to fix the healthcare system? You understand? Right? So you're trying to make it seem like, hey, feminism is all bad, let's get rid of it, when maybe there are some critiques or there's never going to be 100% positive to anything that's ever implemented ever, right? There's always going to be some negatives to things that we implement. So you just be like, oh, here are some problems, right? Like no good deed goes unpunished, right? So like, oh, here's a problem when we did this. Let's figure out a solution to this. That's what life is about. It's about solving a problem and then another one's created that was usually a less than problem. That's kind of the point. That's how life works. The adult decisions work, you know?
And going back to this statement here about what's being told to young people.
These women are often really young, in their 20s, and they're preaching the values of submitting to a husband to an audience of other young women.
Again, excluding what happens to children at air quote family-friendly events, what have you guys been telling women in their 20s? Feminism has constantly been telling women to wait to have kids for things like a career instead of doing a very obvious adjustment, which is to have kids young and then spend the second...
It hasn't telling them to do it. Feminism is generally saying that you have the choice to do it, and then women are like, I would rather focus on work. Provide better services for women to be able to have babies. Like some maybe universal maternity leave would be good so that women don't have to feel like they're putting their entire lives on hold, or mostly a financial issue to have kids. It's a very financially strenuous thing to have kids. Maybe we focus on that, but okay.
Second half of your life, which spans decades, working on a career.
No one really is thinking that 30 is too late at all.
Yeah, well, it turns out that life is shorter than people think. You know, I've had clinical clients who have followed that path, and some of them were women who had initially decided that they didn't want to have children and then changed their minds quite dramatically in their late 20s, which is a very common pattern, and then couldn't have children. And it was just absolutely disastrous for them. They were often on the artificial fertility route for 10 years with multiple miscarriages and failures on that front.
And this is all assuming that working a career is the ultimate path to satisfaction, which is what Novara Media and books like The Feminine Mystique are suggesting. They say that...
I don't know. I'm just looking it up really quickly. A woman's peak reproductive years are between their late teens and late 20s. By 30, fertility, the ability to get pregnant starts to decline. This decline happens faster once you reach your mid to 30. So having a baby by which I would say that I think that they say the optimal age is around 27, 28. Okay. I just don't understand the point of this. Okay, let me just keep going.
Housework and chores are boring and monotonous. However, a career can be just that as well. And that's assuming that you get a good one and you aren't working a career at Starbucks or a grocery store. Most of the fulfilling careers that Betty Friedan talked about in her book were arts careers, to which you are incredibly lucky if you are financially successful in. Most artists are failures. I did notice in the parts that I read that Betty didn't mention construction as a career path for women, but also stuff that sounds good, like discovering the cure for cancer, can be incredibly monotonous. Do you have any idea how boring lab work is? So if you're unfulfilled as a housewife, then you are probably going to be unfulfilled in a career, except now your kids will be raised by the government or some minimum wage daycare employee instead of by their parents. Though the actual answer is less about having a career and more about figuring out some sort of lifelong goal to serve that piques your interest.
Are you saying that we shouldn't have people do childcare helping to raise your kids? Was that the point that you're saying there? I don't really understand. Like, who cares if you have somebody watching your kids? Like, your teachers are taking care of raising your kids too. Like, who cares?
However, that's not really what this Novara Media video is about. It really just seems like a hit piece that's not about solving a problem, but more about making political opponents look bad. Thus, it's propaganda.
Do you mean
you can tell because not only do they provide no solutions for a problem that they are discussing, but also, all the presenter does is name call and relate being...
Well, but they're saying that they just shouldn't be traditional wives. And you could say that that's a bad solution, but that is the solution that they're providing.
a housewife to things that the left hates, instead of actually responding to the arguments.
The trad wife trend sits in the middle of an online content network, drawing together different subcultures, movements, and interests. Its focus on homemaking connects to other lifestyle content like recipes, interior decor, skincare, soft life, and homesteading, which is like farming but made aesthetic. And its rigid belief in fixed gender roles, its rejection of feminism and liberal, left-wing, or progressive values, and its emphasis on Christianity means that it has lent a feminine veneer to conservative far-right and white nationalist ideologies.
I don't see how you're a white nationalist if you want to learn how to garden. To be perfectly honest, though, it seems like the liberal types who are more into gardening, and it's not just conservatives who want to be...
I think that she's just saying that there's overlap between some of the ideologies, and that while being a more traditional wife isn't really an inherently white supremacist thing, it seems like some white supremacists like Nick Fuentes gravitate towards it. I think that's the point that she's trying to make, and that there's different overlap into different communities. I don't think that she was saying, okay, sure.
Stay-at-home mom. Plenty of people on the left want to do that as well. But of course they want to crap on gardening because George Soros probably wants you eating pesticides and GMOs while having no idea where food comes from. It's also curious how TikToks like this weren't shown about how trad wives cooking all the time keeps their kids off convenience junk foods. And by the way, this wasn't the only example of name-calling. It happens a bunch of times during the video. Here's another example of it.
Is the very fact that it advocates women voluntarily surrendering their autonomy by presenting it as an aspirational lifestyle, which makes it so popular with conservatives, misogynists, white nationalists, and religious fundamentalists.
If you want to be a housewife, not only are you a misogynist, but you're also a religious whack job and a racist. And they frame this on the level of...
I don't think that's what she's saying. You could say it's not that deep. I love saying it's not that deep, but like you're not even accurately representing your argument.
Association during the video. Here's another example of it.
Is the very fact that it advocates women voluntarily surrendering their autonomy by presenting it as an aspirational lifestyle, which makes it so popular with conservatives, misogynists, white nationalists, and religious fundamentalists.
She's not saying these things are inherently like bad. What she's saying is that people who are like sexist, like that the movement advocates for women to give up their autonomy of being a submissive housewife. Again, submissive is different from being a passive wife. That's what she's saying. She's not saying all of it is racist.
If you want to be a housewife, not only are you a misogynist, but you're also a religious whack job and a racist. And they frame this on the level of associations like, hey, did you know that bad World War II man liked ice cream? So if you like ice cream, then you're a fascist dictator. The real irony is that they use this fringe example in the form of a person who goes by wife with a purpose and use her word to call traditionalists Nazis.
Well, this is very racist, what she's saying. Steve King rightly says we can't restore our nation with someone else's babies. I'm still insinuating a white baby challenge. I've made 6. Like if you said, hey guys, I think that our America or whatever is having a lowered birth rate. We should have more babies. Fuck more. That's fine. Like more black babies, more white babies, more Hispanic babies, more Asian babies, less Italian babies. I'm just kidding. That's fine because I'm not saying, like, I'm just saying, hey, more American babies. That would be, I think, okay. Although you could argue that that might be, bro, we're doing this together, pussy. We're doing this together. But yeah. But she's saying whiteness is bad. If
Which
you
is
want
really
to decline,
funny because they are heavily associated with and probably funded by a literal former Nazi.
You're a Hungarian Jew who escaped the Holocaust, by posing as a Christian.
Right.
Okay.
And you watched lots of people get shipped off to the death camps.
Right. I was 14 years old. And I would say that that's when my character was made.
My understanding is that you went out with this protector of yours who swore that you were his adopted godson.
Yes, yes.
Went out, in fact, and helped in the confiscation of property from the Jews.
That's right.
Was it difficult?
Not at all. Not at all. No problem at all.
No feeling of guilt?
No.
That was quite the 60 Minutes piece from 1998. I would really recommend watching it.
I don't understand what just happened. What?
Associated with purpose and use her word to call traditionalists Nazis, which is really funny because they are heavily associated with and probably funded by a literal former Nazi.
You're a Hungarian Jew who escaped the Holocaust by posing as a Christian.
I don't understand. He escaped the Holocaust. What does this have to do with him being a Nazi?
And you watched lots of people get shipped off to the death camps.
Right. I was 14 years old. And I would say that that's when my character was made.
My understanding is that you went out with this protector of yours who swore that you were his adopted godson.
Yes, yes.
Went out, in fact, and helped in the confiscation of property from the Jews.
That's right.
Was it difficult?
Not at all. Not at all. No problem at all.
No feeling of guilt?
No.
That was quite the 60 Minutes piece from 1998.
Why? I mean, like, the guilt part's weird to me. If it's not, it sounded like it might have been a little edited, but maybe it's not. Maybe, I don't know. That's sure problematic, but it sounds more like a story of a young Jewish boy who had to pose as a Nazi in order to survive. The no guilt thing is weird. But again, it sounded like there's a few cuts, so I'm wondering if that's actually what he said. But either way, okay. All right.
I would really recommend watching it. But this is all ignoring the more important aspect of the equation, which is that none of this name-calling from Novara Media is an actual argument. It's just trying to put traditionalists into a box and make them
Well, that woman was being racist, and the fact that you can't acknowledge that means that maybe you're also racist. So
bad, which is propagandistic and evil. I mean, like, half of this video is them throwing out a bunch
of...
of...
maybe he was just like, I don't regret it because I would have died. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's how he's rationalized it, I guess. But, bro, that woman said that we need to have more specifically white babies. You don't think that that's racist? Why don't you speak like, yeah, that's pretty racist, but I don't think that's all trad wives. That would have been a perfectly fine argument. But instead, he just like mentions it. He's like, yeah, that's a thing, but that's not bad. It's like, no, it's kind of bad.
Buzz terminology that they know their audience will be offended by to create negative associations with traditionalism. Bunch of buzz terminology that they know their audience will be offended.
Bro, you keep doing that with George Soros. What the fuck are you talking about? You keep saying George Soros woke. You keep talking about fucking drag queens and shit. What are you talking about? You keep... Oh, excuse me. You're not being explicit about it, but you are bringing it up constantly. You're doing the same thing that you're claiming that she's doing, but except for somehow you showed... I would have just not shown it if you weren't going to disavow the racism part. You showed a clip where the woman's like, well, have more white babies. We need to not have as many... Why? Just saying we need more white babies is racist. American babies, I'm down for that. All right? Let's have more babies. That's cool. You know, if you want to have a higher, birth rate, native population, that's fine. But she said white babies. That's not good. That's racist.
To create negative associations with traditionalism.
Some trad wives have allied themselves with the conservative right by taking aggressively transphobic stances. Trad wife culture is dominated by aggressively anti-abortion, anti-birth control, and anti-sex views.
Yeah, if you want to be a stay-at-home mom, then you're...
Conservative right by taking aggressively transphobic stances. Trad wife culture is dominated...
Things I will not support as a woman.
By aggressively anti-abortion.
Abortion is blank. Satanic. Okay.
Abortion, anti-birth control.
Hormonal birth control has made a whole generation of women sick. I don't know about
Control
that.
And anti-sex.
I'm a post-feminist woke culture. Promiscuity is glorified as sexual empowerment and sold as a false form of liberalism that can, in certain cases, actually wind up binding them to many hidden forms of irreversible harm. I mean, I kind of agree with that. I think that men and women should both be able to be as sexually promiscuous as they want to be, but I also think that it's bad for both men and women. So I might kind of agree with this one a little bit. But I think that women wanting sexual liberation is fine. I just wouldn't advocate for it. If you want to go sleep around, I personally wouldn't recommend it, but you do you. God bless you, because you sneezed.
Views.
Yeah, if you want to be a stay-at-home mom, then you're transphobic and you want to take women's rights away.
That's not what she's saying.
That's basically what they're saying, when I bet that most of these trad wives outside of the internet aren't even that political. Okay. However, Novara Media is so hell-bent on propagandizing people into hating traditional households that they even go to the point where they really are stretching to relate housewives to people.
Bro, the problem is if he was just like, yo, I don't think it's that deep, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm totally on that argument. Yeah, I don't think it's that deep. I think this is like some a little bit like too woke online bullshit if you want to say something like that, whatever. But you're just flat out just lying about it the way that she said, or maybe you just don't understand the point she's making. But like, you can just say, hey, I don't think it's that big of a deal or that serious. I think that you're kind of going a little too far with these things. That's a fair criticism, I think. But to just be like, no, so you're saying everybody that says that is right? Oh, everybody's racist. No, you're saying that it seems attractive to racists, right? Especially a woman who says we need more specifically white babies. That's racist. I just want you to know that, unquestionably, undoubtedly so. Which you didn't disavow. But okay, let's keep going.
Well, that those housewives would personally hate.
If you want to know with certainty...
And she's not talking about housewives. She's specifically talking about like housewife influencers, which is what it seems like. But okay.
Tradwife trend is an empowering reclamation of domestic labor, or just regular old sexism made palatable with TikTok aesthetics. Just look at the kind of men who approve of it.
Or I don't like girls who are over sociable. I
don't
like girls who know
dog
lots of
shit
people.
piece
I don't like girls who are always
sex
out.
trafficker.
Okay, except there's one major problem here.
What's that battle?
Andrew Tate isn't a traditionalist. He's a guy who is heavily in favor of sexual promiscuity and infidelity, which traditionalists hate. You even showed that.
No, but like he does. No, so this is the problem. You're so fucking like uneducated on this stuff. Andrew Tate speaks to traditionalism and applies it to specifically women, and will take advantage of religious teachings and apply them to women. But then when it comes to men, men are free to be whatever animal they want to be. That is the hypocrisy of Andrew Tate, the most successful sex trafficker in the world. Okay. That's it. Maybe not the most successful. I don't know. Either way, right? What is that? The other guy? What is that? Epstein? Anyway. Either way. Yeah. How do you not know this?
In your video with this tweet here that has a message that is very against promiscuity. You also featured women like Astique several times in your video, who is so devoutly against promiscuity and going outside the relationship that she won't even go to the gym without her husband.
I do not go to the gym without my husband, ever. I did this when I was single, and when I tell you the amount of people, men, that walk up to me in the gym,
oh, that's fair, actually.
It's countless. Yeah. And a married woman, whether she has a ring on her finger or not, men just sometimes don't follow those boundaries, and it's not about trust, it's about removing yourself from a situation before it can
base supporting feminism and respecting women
even happen.
Not to mention that Andrew Tate ran a cam girl business, which is something that traditionalists also don't like, which you also acknowledged earlier by calling them anti-sex. Did you even research this group? It's hard to believe that, especially when this video spends all this time crapping on the lifestyle, but zero time actually going over why women want to be traditional.
Okay, so while I think all these things explain the political impact of the tradwife trend, they don't explain why it's so appealing in the first place. The answer is simple. Modern life, in many ways, sucks. It's hard to make the case in an era of low wages, high anxiety, precarious work, and extortion.
She does this thing that you said she didn't do. I'm so confused. Wait.
They don't
to be traditional. This video spends all this time crapping on the lifestyle, but zero time actually going over why women want to be traditional.
Okay, so while I think all these things explain the political impact of the tradwife trend, they don't explain why it's so appealing in the first place.
Wait, but why would you put that in your video?
Anti-sex ran a cam girl style, but zero time actually. It's hard to believe that, especially when this video spends all this time crapping on the lifestyle, but zero time actually going over why women want to be traditional.
Okay, so
then you say that, and then she starts going over why women want to be. Sorry, I had. Hey, can you hear me? Okay, good. My stuff went out of tune for a second.
While I think all these.
Okay, anyway, you just said that she doesn't spend any time doing that, and now she's doing that. You could have said she spent the most of the video not talking about why women want to be traditional until the end, and that is an example of priming people against traditional relationships before actually, whatever. You could have made that argument, but she's literally about to do it.
Things explain
your cell phone.
The political impact of the tradwife trend. They don't explain why it's so appealing in the first place. The answer is simple.
The fucking
Modern
cell
life,
phone. This
in
guy's
many
an
ways,
idiot.
sucks. It's hard to make the case in an era of low wages, high anxiety, precarious work, and extortionate rents that women are liberated just through entering the labor market.
Okay, but people being poor is not the major argument for traditional homes. I understand that you're taking that angle so you can promote communism, but the big argument for a woman staying home is so that there's a parent there to take care of the kids instead of having someone else raise them.
No. That is an argument. No, you're so, bro. You're so dumb. Like, I'm not trying to be rude because it's not just a difference in opinion. First, he's like, you don't even go over why people want to do this, and then she starts going over why people want to do it, and like, that's not it. Absolutely, a reason that women would want to go back to a more traditional lifestyle is because working sucks, and so it's less because we do absolutely have issues in class. Okay, we don't have to be fucking communists to deal with class issues, right? It makes women go like, fuck, this sucks. I want to be more traditional. It's not the entire equation. It's not the entire equation. There are, of course, other factors, but that aspect of it, absolutely. Working sucks. What are you talking about? So, okay, I guess you just don't understand words or something. I don't fucking get it. Okay.
It's also about separation of labor so that each partner can specialize with their talent and create a better product for the household.
Sure.
But like I said, this video literally responds to none of the arguments that trad wives have for why they want that lifestyle. Even the stuff around birth control.
Tradwife, religious, and conservative advocates have taken to TikTok in order to push disinformation about birth control.
Okay.
This can range from falsely calling the pill a carcinogen.
Let's see what we got here.
In order to push disinformation.
Did you know hormonal birth control classified as a class 1 carcinogen? That means they know it causes cancer. Is birth control a class 1 carcinogen? Being labeled as a group 1 carcinogen means that there is sufficient evidence that an agent, in this case hormonal birth control, that contains synthetic progesterone called progesterone and estrogen called estrogen, whatever, has the potential to cause cancer in humans. Okay, so it seems like oh, maybe that's true. So it means that let's see, being labeled as a group 1 carcinogen means that there is sufficient evidence that the agent, in this case hormonal birth control, that contains synthetic progesterone has the potential to cause cancer in humans. So it's saying that there might be an associate. I mean, she's not necessarily wrong. Now, as far as that they know it causes cancer bit, like, that's a little bit probably disproportionate, but she's not necessarily wrong, it looks like. How does taking birth control affect my risk for cancer? Overall, research has shown that taking the pill can decrease your risk for ovarian and uterine cancers, but the effect on breast cancer risk is not clear. This seems very complicated, very interesting. It says that relying on hormonal contraceptive methods for a long period may put you at greater risk for gallbladder disease or okay, interesting. Okay.
About birth control. This can range.
Will you forever let women know that their birth control is a group 1 carcinogen is ruining their health?
From falsely calling the pill a carcinogenic to hyping out the rhythm or pull-out method.
Okay, sorry.
This can range from falsely calling the pill a carcinogenic to hyping.
The rhythm method, natural. What the fuck is the rhythm method? The rhythm method. What the fuck is that? What? The rhythm method is a type of birth control that involves tracking your menstrual cycles. This is a form of birth control involving, okay, tracking your menstrual. Okay, I guess you could do that. I feel like that's not enough to do. Okay.
Hyping out the rhythm or pull-out methods.
Pull out, my favorite, yeah.
On social media. Just to be clear, these
my favorite's dating a PCOS queen. You know, the best of both worlds.
are less forms of contraception than they are playing pregnancy roulette.
First of all, just from a self-preservation perspective, if you're going to go full Andrew Tate and sleep with lots of women, then you should never trust a woman who says she's on birth control. Though understand that the tradwife argument about birth control is in the context of a committed relationship, and the Christians you hate so much have always preached against the kind of sexual promiscuity that would make not
I don't think that
not taking birth control dangerous. Second, like any medication, birth control has its side effects, and that's not just some crazy conspiracy theory or some bad life plan that will lead to an unintended pregnancy. If you wear a condom properly, cycle track, and use a condom with pull-out during the ovulation period, then there is virtually zero chance that you will get a woman pregnant.
Maybe. I don't think that... Maybe that's what they were saying. I guess.
And then you don't have to take a drug for years that alters your body's chemistry.
Okay.
This commentary video is so disingenuous in the way it criticizes traditionalism. On top of that, they provide zero alternatives or solutions that would make people's lives better than the thing that they are criticizing.
In this case, it would be you can use birth control. You're not right about that. They would say, yeah, use birth control. Why the fuck is my mouse still on my screen? It's pissing me off. They would say, hey, hey, you could keep using the old birth control, the old BC. That's their argument. Just so you know, if you weren't, they are providing alternatives. They are, in fact, trying to discount the alternative, which means that they're not providing an alternative. They have their solution. And they're like, hey, your idea of a solution is bad. That's what they're saying there. Okay.
So, what to do
So
about
you're
it?
not
I
right
think it
about
means
that.
generating a different vision of fulfillment, happiness, emotional nourishment, and yeah, family life, which isn't predicated on the patriarchal domination of women. Work won't set women free, and neither will being ruled by men.
Sorry, pussy.
It's freedom,
We're going
equality,
together.
and reciprocal care that will.
That doesn't mean anything. It's just a bunch of words that sound good. Because I, as a viewer, have no idea how to turn my household into something ideal based on what you said. It just
It's so funny that people just leave the dungeon when I enter it to do it. This is so funny.
seems like you're using a bunch of big words to hide the fact that you don't actually have an alternative that will make people happier and more fulfilled. However, what I really hope for is that in the future, I don't have to explain to you guys that this is pure propaganda for you to notice it. And when I say propaganda, I'm not using it as a term to define something that I disagree with.
You are.
Nor am I using the more liberal Edward Bernays definition of the word as a term for influencing technique. Propaganda is a negative. It's a deliberate technique to get you to believe and act on something false by using manipulative techniques like only talking about one side of the argument, calling your opponents a bunch of names.
That's what you do. All your videos are like anti-feminist.
Instead of responding to their ideas. And
okay, woke is that, by the way. Calling everything woke, like unironically, is basically that. It's supposed to be like the conservative curse word. Woke really just means anything that's left. Like healthcare is woke. Trans people are woke. Everything is woke nowadays. You know, I mean, some things are woke, right? But like you just that's so that you're doing the same thing. It's a dismissal tactic, no?
saying something is bad without providing any good alternatives. The only purpose of such material is to break things down and turn the viewer into someone useless. Again, it's hard to believe that this stuff is not nefarious, particularly when 4 years ago, Ash said this.
And I very much believe that your audience is only as stupid as you treat them. So if you deliver things with nuance, if you deliver things with complexity, you give them something of real substance to agree with or disagree with, then you'll have a really great audience.
Wait, but didn't he just say before that like he didn't want to define neoliberalism and didn't want to use big words because he thinks that his audience, like because he doesn't want to have an issue miscommunicating? Aren't you basically saying they're too dumb to understand some things? I mean, I tend to agree that there are some times where you use words that are too much, but you talked about neoliberalism, which is in the content of, you said that when she called something neoliberal, that was her attempt to use a big word to confuse people, basically. But that's like a normal thing. Like, I fundamentally agree that this is a thing, but not with a fucking basic term, like a political term, that you didn't even decide to define and show your audience. So it sounds like you think your audience is stupid, and you're agreeing that you think that they're dumb. You think your own audience is dumb.
Then why do you treat your audience like they are complete morons by trying to trick them with partial citations that don't lead to your actual resources? Why do you offer no nuance by not actually addressing the trad wife arguments and by suggesting that everyone who wants to stay home is a racist and a misogynist?
She didn't say that.
There was no steel manning of the opposition's arguments whatsoever.
Who cares?
An intelligent person would take on their opponent's strongest arguments, but clearly Novara
But you didn't do that.
media believes their audience is
You didn't even do that.
stupid, so they didn't do that. But the great thing
You
is,
didn't
and
do
I've said this
that.
a bunch of times on this channel before, is that all you have to do to fix the problem is simply recognize propaganda, and it doesn't work on you. And it
All you have to say is this is wrong because I said so, and it works.
doesn't take an incredibly advanced intelligence to do that.
Okay.
You just have to know the tricks and watch what they are doing instead of listening to what they're saying. People who aren't trying to manipulate you towards an agenda won't do what Novara Media did in their video, and as soon as you see these tactics used, you should immediately stop listening to the speaker because they aren't someone who is acting in good faith or your best interest. Anyway, thanks for watching, follow me on Twitter, and I'll see you in the next video.
Wow. It's been a while since we watched one of his videos. Pretty bad stuff. Pretty bad stuff. Yeah, cool. Jeez, guess something else, huh?